go.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and call the July 31st, 2025 City Council Budget Workshop to order. It is 5:34. We do have our tax assessor, tax collector, Mr. Jimmy Ladner here to give us a presentation.
Okay, guys, I appreciate y'all having me here to speak to you. I don't know how much anybody knows about this, so it's sort of a generic little presentation here. I'll be happy to answer any questions at any time, so just let me know. I'll tell you the same thing I tell every time I speak to a group about taxes. The only thing I won't answer is a question about your personal appraisal. You don't want me to talk about that in a group setting, but I'll be happy to talk to you about it later. I'd like to start off, and I know this may sound simplistic, but what we're talking about is ad valorem taxes. And what ad valorem tax is a tax on or according to value. I can tell you it's been around since the Romans were here. It's not a whole lot more popular today than it was then, but it is the primary source of all revenue for local governments. Now, cities like yourself, y'all do get a sales tax on top of this. We're in county government. We operate solely under ad valorem taxes and other revenues such as grants and state funds and just like y'all, but we get no sales tax at the county level. All of ours is on ad valorem tax. I get a lot of questions from time to time is how we appraise the property and when is that appraisal date effective? Well, lien date for real property is January the 1st. And in the state of Mississippi, we collect taxes in arrears. So the tax bill that you will receive in December of 2025 is actually as that property was on January the 1st of 2025. So if you owned it on January the 1st of 2025 and sold it on January the 2nd of 2025, for that tax year, it's going to be treated just like you own it. The tax bill will go out in your name. The homestead exemption status that you carried would be there on that day. The homestead would be there, the value would be there. We're gonna actually send you the tax bill. We get a lot of questions from time to time is, why does it take so long to change the name on a property when I sell it or buy it? It's not a matter of it taking that long. Physically or technically, we could change it the day after it was bought or sold. But by statute, everything is treated how it is on January the 1st of that land roll. Your personal property, if you're a business owner, your business personal property, the lien date of that is March 1st, meaning we're going to take a snapshot of what's in your business on March the 1st. That's everything from tables and chairs of a restaurant to the inventory in the back room of it. And that's as of March 1st, same thing. If it was there on March 1st, we're going to assess it for property taxes that year. If you owned it on March 1st of that year, you're going to get the tax bill for it. Another question I've gotten, and I watched y'all's little discussion, I'm be fair, so I've tried to answer those questions, is when is the assessor responsible for appraising the property or setting the value? There's a myth out there that we do this every 5 years, every 10 years, every 15 years, depending on who you talk to. The reality is that the assessor of each county is responsible for setting the value of the county every year. Every year, we set the value. Now, what we do on a schedule is our updates, okay? We're on a 4-year cycle in the state of Mississippi. We by law, visit at least 25% of the improved properties in the county every year, okay? Now, that don't mean that we won't visit your property more than once every 4 years. I tell the story that's sort of halfway joking. I got a neighbor on the left of me whose house is kept in perfect condition, but he never adds anything to it. So we're going to visit his house every 4 years. At least every 4 years we're going to visit his house. The neighbor on the right of me, every time he buys a new toy, he builds a shed to put it under. Okay, we're going to visit him every time we get a copy of the certificate of occupancy from planning and zoning. Now, do we do that just because we want to pick up as much revenue as we can? Yes, I'm be straight up with you. As your taxing authority, the assessor, my job to pick up any taxable property that we can so that we have fair assessments across the board. And that's the key to it. We want to pick that shed up from an equity standpoint, because we don't want to pick his up 2 or 3 years after it's been there when you've been paying taxes on your shed every year. So it's twofold. We pick it up, one, for the taxing revenue, that's true, and we pick it one up, another reason is for equity. You know, how is property valued in the state of Mississippi? You know, we're just like, I'm a licensed fee appraiser as well as an elected tax assessor. We use the exact same 3 approaches to value our property in the tax office as I would do if I was doing a bank appraisal. Now, the only difference is, in mass appraisal, we typically use a combination of the cost approach and the market comparison approach. Now, what that means is the improvements, the house, the sheds, the fence, whatever, we use a cost manual that's provided to us by the State Department of Revenue to establish that value. We pull the market of the land, from the market to get that. If lots are selling for $25,000 in a subdivision, and there's 5 lots that sold for $25,000 in a 10-lot subdivision, pretty good indication that lots are worth $25,000 in that subdivision. So we'll combine the 2 together, and that's how we're gonna come up with the value of that property. I'm also as a licensed fee appraiser, I'm also a member of the MLS, so we track sales that way. The assessor is responsible for tracking sales to make sure that the value of the county is in line with what the market says. We also send sales ratios out. Funny thing about them, I'm required to send you one if you sell a piece of property. You're not required to send it back to me. So, you know, so we work hard to keep up with the sales. What do we appraise? We have 5 classes of property in the state of Mississippi. Class 1 is single family owner occupied, which has a 10% assessment rate. It's basically your homesteaded property, okay? Class 2 is any other real property, whether it be the Shell station out here, an empty lot, Walmart, whatever it is, that's class 2, and it's assessed at a 15% assessment ratio. Class 3 is personal property and inventory. Now that's business property, okay? Mississippi doesn't have individual personal property tax. Some states do. Some states tax your couch and your TV and everything else along with it. We don't. It's just a business here. And that's everything from, like I said, the tables and chairs in a restaurant to the inventory in the back room, okay? And that's taxed at a 15% assessment ratio. Class 4 is public utilities. That's your Mississippi Powers, your phone companies, your gas lines, things like that. Class 5 is automobiles, and those are both class 4 and 5 assessed at a 30% assessment rate. Now, the unique part about class 4 and 5 is they are not assessed at the local level. The state establishes those values. The local assessment office establishes class 1, 2, and 3 values. Another thing that's unique to Mississippi is that our classes of property are constitutional, not legislative, okay? Our legislature don't do that. That's part of section 112 of our Constitution. So to change those classes or the assessment rates in them, it would actually take a constitutional amendment in the state of Mississippi to change that. The land roll. The land roll is basically the 5 classes of property, the value of the 5 classes of property added together, which gives me an appraisal of the county, which is commonly referred to as the land roll. The tax assessor of each county submits that land roll to the Board of Supervisors on the first Monday of July or July 1st. The roll is open for public inspection for the month of July. You have until August the 1st as a property owner to file an appeal if you disagree with the assessor's value, excuse me. If you disagree with the assessor's value, the Board of Supervisors will set a hearing, and the board will set as an equalization board. You or your agent will come as the property owner and present your case as to why you think your value should be different. As assessor, I will present the case as to why I think the value is correct. Once we're through, the board can say, I agree with the property owner, I agree with the assessor, or I don't agree with either of you, and we're gonna split it down the middle. Because it's theirs at that point. Now, if you disagree with the board's decision, you have the right to appeal it all the way through the court, to the court system, all the way to the Supreme Court if you want. I'm done for that. That's the value they've set. It's their land roll at that point, so I'm done. What governs the assessor collector's office? Section 27 of the Mississippi Code is gonna have 95% of the statutory laws that cover our office, which requires us to do. 13 rules that are set and enforced by the Department of Revenue. These rules have power of law. What happened is, there was a gentleman by the name of J.C. Redd that sued the state of Mississippi over inequities back in the late 70s, early 80s. He took it all the way to the Supreme Court, just like I said he could do as a property owner. Supreme Court ruled in his favor, and they told the legislature in their ruling to come up with rules to appraise property equitably across the state in line with Section 112. But if anybody knows anything about the legislature, they would still be up there pounding that out 40 years later. So what they did, and I think it was smart of them, they gave the Department of Revenue the responsibility of establishing those rules and gave those rules power of law. And the reason I think it was good for them to do it that way is because they could hire a staff to come up with it that had experience in appraising property and knowing what they were doing, as opposed to going through the legislative process that looks like sausage grinding. Rule 6 applies to real property. And just to put it in perspective, if you stacked up all 13 rules, they'd be about that high, okay, from the chair. Stack them up, paper to paper to paper, be about that high. That much of it would be Rule 6. Because Rule 6 deals with your house, your business property, stuff like that. It's the part that deals with what people typically look for. Okay, so as it's grown over the years, Rule 6 is that much of that pop. There's 3 parts to the tax equation. Part 1 is the assessed value. Part 2 is the millage rate. Part 3 is the homestead exemption status. Who's responsible for those? The assessed value is the county assessor's responsibility. He or she sets the value of your property, and it's up to he or she to defend it. I am adamant about that. And the reason I'm adamant about that is because I'm not gonna take any credit for the millage. The millage is you folks, okay? You, the school board, and the board of supervisors. The taxing authorities set the millage rate. Number 3 is the homestead status. It is the property owner's responsibility to come in and file for their homestead exemption. We do not know if you bought a house on Esplanade that you want to make that your homestead. You might own 5 houses in Hancock County. It's up to the property owner to come in and file their homestead exemption. Now look, we do a lot of advertisement. We run advertisement in the local paper. We advertise on Facebook. We try to get the word out that it's time for you to apply for homestead between January the 1st and April the 1st. But it's the property owner's responsibility to come in and file the paper.
Jimmy,
Yeah.
on the millage, you said it's the taxing authority's responsibility. Is that not set as far as how much the millage is, or is that just up to us?
There's 2 things. The number of mills is set by the taxing authority. In your case, it would be set by the city council. Now, there are some limitations to what you can do. Like the city council is, in all taxing authorities, you are tied to a 10% growth in revenue to your existing value. So let's just say, for ease of math, if your millage rate generated $100 last year based on that value, you couldn't grow that revenue past $110 this year. Okay, so if it was 10 mills generating that $100, you could only raise it to 11 mills to generate that second $10. So the number is not tied in the sense that somebody says you can only put 5 mills or 50 mills. Where your tie comes in is the percentage that you can change it by. Okay, now, and that excludes any new growth. Okay, if they came in and put a brand new shopping center inside of Bay St. Louis that was gonna generate $500,000 a year in taxes, that $500,000 would not be included in that 10% cap, because that's new growth. Okay, the cap is on your existing value.
So, and then the millage, so the schools, like the Bay has their own set, and then the county has their own set.
The Bay has their own set, the Bay St. Louis school system has its own millage rate, and the county has its own millage rate. Now, schools are a little bit different, okay? Schools are not tied in the same way as city councils and boards of supervisors are tied, okay? Because they're a revenue-based authority, meaning they come to you and ask for an amount of revenue. They're not a taxing authority, okay? You, the city council, y'all are a taxing authority, okay? The school system, both Bay St. Louis and Hancock County, they are a revenue authority, meaning they ask somebody for a particular amount of money. Where they're tied is this: they can raise, and that not just them, any school system can raise their revenue request by 4% over last year's just because. I mean, they don't have to justify it. I'm not saying they shouldn't, I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying if their revenue was $100 last year, they could raise it to 104 this year, and you as the city council have no choice by statute but to set a millage that will cover that $104. Okay, now if they tried to go from 4 to 7%, okay, let's just say they was gonna go to $6 instead of asking for 4, they was gonna ask for 6. Then there's a provision in the law that would allow for a referendum to be called, but you couldn't call it. The residents of the district would have to call it, and there's a process that they would have to go through. Above 7%, the school system would have to call for a referendum to be voted on for that. But the first 4%, and again, I'm not just talking about Bay St. Louis City school system, I'm talking about school systems across the state of Mississippi. The first 4%, they can ask for. They don't have to justify it. And again, I'm not saying they don't, I'm just saying it's theirs if they want to take it.
Speaking of that, Mr. Ladner, do you think the increase in the mill value will cover that 4% this year, or will it be an increase in the mill rate also?
We're gonna, if you can hold off
Okay.
just a little bit, I've got a little bit more detail about that, but I'll be happy to answer, but if,
Okay.
Jimmy, just one other comment.
Yep.
Councilwoman Falba. I think it's our first meeting in September is where the council will put it before y'all to actually set the millage, so set the mill rate for the year. That's a step in our budget process that has to be done before September 15th.
That's
So
right.
it'll lay out exactly what the school is, what our portion is, what part is debt service. It all lays it out. If y'all, some of y'all from been here before, you remember that piece of paper we put in front of y'all.
and we have that in a slide coming too, but Mike's exactly right. And he brought up another thing that I did neglect to say, and I want to. The 4% or the 10% cap, in y'all's case, that does not include debt service. If the council was to go out for a bond, and again, if you chose to go out for a general obligation bond to build a new building someplace, okay, the millage that you would need to cover that debt service is outside of the 10% cap. Okay, so if your 10% was gonna generate $250,000 and it took another $25,000 to pay that debt service, you could raise it to 275 and still be within the restraints of the law. So your debt service is outside of the 10% cap. The next page here is I have a comparison of, and this is where we're going to, Josh. We're showing about a 3% increase over last year's mill value for the city of Bay St. Louis school system. So it's gonna come real close. Okay, just the growth in the mill value from 267 to 276 would come real close to covering that 4% without a millage increase. And in the city's case, we're showing an actual 4% increase in your mill value. from about 190 to about 199.
Now, Mr. Jimmy, excuse me, for the school district, the 3% growth, so is that not would that fall into the exemption of new growth, being it's the value that changed? So they
Well-
can still go for 4% over last year?
And you got to remember, the school system is not tied to a millage rate, they're tied to 4%, period.
Okay.
You know, so, you know, and I will tell you, there's a difference of opinion across the state of Mississippi whether or not new growth counts in that 4% or not. My personal opinion is they're tied to 4%.
4% regardless.
Okay, and I've had superintendents agree with me, superintendents disagree with me. But because they're a budgetary agency, they're asking for an amount of money and they're tied to 4% over last year. And again, that's my opinion on it. There's folks at the state auditor's office that have a lot more education on that than me. But I think they're tied to 4%.
Perfect, thank you.
But this is a comparison from Bay St. Louis to this year. And when you look at those 5 classes of property, because a lot of times people get caught up in saying, if the value of the mill increases and you don't lower taxes, you've raised everybody's taxes. Well, to be fair, that's one way of looking at things. But it's got to be looked at from a revenue standpoint, okay? And on an update year, like this is an update year for us, you're required to put in your advertisement what you could have lowered millage to and generated the same revenue that you generated last year. That's a requirement in the advertisement, okay? But it's up to the council to make that decision whether or not you should roll back or not. And what I mean by that is we could see an increase in real property values, but then see a decrease in personal property values or public utility values that may require you to keep the millage rate the same thing. Okay, so each year stands on its own, or should. You know, the way it should work, in my opinion, is you should have the assessor's office over here establishing the value of the taxing authority district, geographic district. Okay, you should have the taxing authority over here establishing the budget, and the budget should be as conservative and as strong a budget as needed to provide the services needed in the city, okay? And then by September the 15th, when you have established the value of the mill, established the budget, you divide the value into the budget, and that gives you your mill rate, okay? Now, that's the academic way. I mean, you know, that's the way, if I was teaching this, I would teach it from an academic standpoint. The reality is every taxing authority in the state starts calling their assessor's office around April asking what the value of the mill is, because everybody wants and needs as much revenue as they can get by leaving the millage rates the same. I mean, it's just that simple. So, you know, I'll be glad to answer any question. I'm not trying to be vague. I just, you know, it's one of those things is that if you see a huge property value increase, should you lower millage? Probably so. We've done that. At one time here in Bay St. Louis, when I first took office, we saw a huge increase in value in a reappraisal year. And the city of Bay St. Louis School District actually lowered their millage by 14 mills that
happened a couple of years ago.
a couple years ago, the same thing. Not to that extent, but a couple
They
years.
reduced 7 or 8.
They reduced 7 or 8 a couple years ago, and still took their 4%. Took, for lack of a better word, still received the 4% increase. So, you know, can it be done? Yeah, but it's not always done because you never know the particular reason why values rose or stayed the same. I mean, you know, you could see that increase in real property, and like Hancock County School System a couple years ago, prime example, there was a pipeline that shut down, and I mean went away. They abandoned it in place, gave the land back to the property owners, the whole thing. It cost the Hancock County School System enough that they had to raise millage to get their 4%. I mean, because even though the rest of their values stayed the same, and in some cases may have went up a little bit, that public utility role went down because of that one property. Another example when Kmart shut down in Waveland, Waveland lost enough personal property tax from that one store shutting down that it cost them 1 mil. 1 mil was cost by one business shutting down. And at the time, it was $62,000 in mill value, and Kmart paid $62,000 a year in personal property tax. And when they closed, that went away, and the city of Waveland had to raise it by 1 mil just to stay even with the year before. So that's what I'm saying. Each year, you have to look at it across the board as to what's happening, what's needed. You know, it's just hard to say a generic statement that if property values rise and you don't lower millage, you're raising everybody's taxes. That's not, that shouldn't be the only consideration, is what I'm saying.
And I think that's what we was having a discussion of, is that, cause the value of the mill increased, that meant we raised taxes on everybody, and I guess everybody looked at it different. I look at it as, you got more people paying into the pot because you got new houses coming online, you got different things, you got the assessed value may have went up. We didn't necessarily raise taxes on the people. To say it in that term was where I kind of disagreed with that term when it came out.
And that's it,
you know?
and Councilman, that's my exact point, is, you know, you gotta look at it across the board. I mean, Bay St. Louis had a lot of new growth over the course of last year. So a lot of your value increase is because of the houses that's been built here. You know, we didn't go in and do a wholesale revaluation of every lot in Bay St. Louis. So if your lot was worth $25,000 year before last, now it's worth $30,000. Now, are there some areas that we have to keep up with the market? Yes, but you know, we got 55,000 parcels in Hancock County. Some of them hadn't changed value in 50 years. You know, you get down into Marsh and Ansley, you know, they ain't changed in 50 years, won't ever change. You know, some of them will change almost every year because the market's hot there. You know, it goes back to the old real estate saying, there's three most important things about real estate is location, location, location. Second most important thing about real estate is supply and demand. You know, we're seeing values continue to rise in Bay St. Louis because of both of those. Location, and every time they build a house on an empty lot in Bay St. Louis, that's one fewer empty lots in Bay St. Louis. So supply and demand is having an effect on it as well. And let me just tell you, that's a good problem to have. I can tell you and introduce you to councilmen and assessors across the state that would love to have that problem. I mean, that would absolutely love to be having a conversation about what's good or what's bad about the increase of mill in value.
On that same note, I think, kind of just reiterating the point to make sure I have an understanding, the people whose properties were reassessed, which you do 25% of the county each year, right? Those are the ones that had a tax increase, but the other part of that equation is the new developments that happened, or your neighbor building the shed, that also attributes to, it's not just a one area
and that's
increase.
exactly what I'm saying. It's not just one dimensional. It's more, and the 25% of the properties that we visit every year, to use my example of my two neighbors, the one to the left of me that keeps his house exactly perfect like it should be, we visited him, but we didn't necessarily change anything about him. The one to the right that builds the new shed to cover a new toy every time he buys a new toy, now he's going to see an increase if the millage value, the mill value. He's going to see an increase if the mill rate stays the same because he built a $5,000 shed on his place and it raised his value by $5,000. That wasn't a market increase. That wasn't a market increase. That was an increase of utility or increase in value that he built by adding the shed to his place. So it's hard just to say that if the mill value increases, everybody's taxes is going up, because that's not necessarily true.
Thank you.
On the next page, if you look at it, I just want to give you a little example of what homestead exemption does and doesn't do, because we get a lot of people ask this question. We basically have 4 types of homestead exemption in the state of Mississippi. The first one is regular homestead exemption. They went really in looking for these names. They really dug hard to find regular homestead exemption. What regular homestead exemption does for you, first off, to qualify, it has to be your primary residence, and you have to be under 65, it's going to assess your property at a 10% assessment and give you up to a $300 credit on your home. That $300 credit is basically the first $7,500 in assessed value, excuse me. In this taxing district, that home will have a tax bill of $653.50. The next homestead exemption is special homestead exemption. Special homestead exemption does two things for you. The first thing it does for you is exempt the first $75,000 in value. The second thing it does for you particularly, and it was really important, like in markets like ours that are continuously rising, it freezes your value for taxation if you're over 65 years old. Okay? Now that doesn't mean we stop making adjustments to your place. You know, we're gonna keep up with the current value as well as your taxable value. And it doesn't include if you add a pool to it or add 2 bedrooms on the back of it. We're gonna pick that up. But once you reach 65, if you leave your home the way it is, your value is going to be froze for taxation purposes in the state of Mississippi. And what that same home, that same $100,000 home, if it was carrying special homestead exemption, by the time you do the math, the taxes on it would be $238.50. Okay? The third one is a home with no homestead exemption. It's somebody that's got a second home over here, or it's a rental, or whatever the purpose is. It's just not a homesteaded property. That same $100,000 home with a 15% assessment, same millage rate, the tax bill on it's gonna be $1,430. Same exact home. The fourth type is DAV. That's disabled veteran, and it has to be service connected. A service connected 100% veteran in the state of Mississippi is 100% exempt from ad valorem taxes. Doesn't matter if it's a $100,000 house or a $1 million house. If they're 100% disabled and that disability is service connected, they're 100% exempt from ad valorem taxes. They pay 0 taxes. So you can see there's the same $100,000 house with 4 different homestead statuses. They can pay a range from 0 to $1,430 in taxes. So homestead, and I give that example, and I know it's a little off subject tonight, but every year we'll have people show up in December that didn't file their homestead, and they'll say, I didn't think it was worth that much. I thought it was only $300. Tell me, you dealt with that for years. Homestead exemption in the state of Mississippi is huge. Basically, if you have regular homestead exemption, what it's gonna do for you is save you a third plus $300. It's gonna cut your taxes by a third plus $300 if you have homestead exemption, regular homestead exemption, as opposed to not having homestead on your house. So it's a big deal.
Jimmy,
Yep.
the special homestead exemption, did you say that there could be no beautifying of the home in
Not-
order to keep that special?
There could be no addition to the home. You can maintain the home, but you can't add a swimming pool in the back of it. You can't add 2 bedrooms to the back of it, or a covered garage on the edge. What's frozen in value when you turn 65 is what's actually there. Okay, so if you went in and put a $40,000 swimming pool in the backyard, we're gonna add that $40,000 swimming pool to the value that was frozen.
Okay.
So that's how that
Yeah.
works. And here, the next page is where I was talking about setting the millage rate, where the assessor is over here setting the value, the taxing authorities are over here setting the budget. You divide one to the other, and that's where you come up with your millage rate. I mean, it's really not new math. On the budget, the millage rate there, that's 724. That's last year's countywide millage rate, what it would generate.
Mr. Jimmy, one more question from my end. So the real property, it gets treated like it is January 1 of the land roll. So say a developer finishes housing development in February. it's not gonna get, the value of that property isn't gonna change until, so the following year, so we won't see an increase in our mill,
That's right.
value of our mill.
Again, January 1st is your lien date, okay? And we go by certificate of occupancy, you know, because we're lucky. We're a lucky county. All 4 of our entities, the 3 cities in the county, all have planning and zoning offices where you have to have a permit and you get a CO. So we have something that we can go by. Other counties aren't that lucky. So if a building is completed on February 1st, to use your example, then we're not gonna pick it up for 25 land roll, okay? It'll be picked up on 26. Now, and we're getting a little bit, I mean, what I'm telling you here is the absolute basics.
Basic, absolutely, yeah.
Now, there's some other things there that there's also a developer's discount, okay? And what that's designed to do is to make a subdivision viable. You don't want to tax a guy out of existence before he ever sells his first home, okay? Now, the way that works is they have to come in and apply for it. They're putting in a new subdivision. Let's say, for ease of math, the lots are valued at $20,000 a piece. As long as that subdivision is under active development and the lots stay in the developer's name, then we will assess those lots at $10,000, at 50% of what the value actually is. Now, we will stop that when either the lots change hands, or when we see that the developer is no longer developing and he's saving these last 5 lots just as investments, okay? Because we track it, you know, and if all of a sudden he's not selling any more lots and he's got 5 in there, well, we're gonna move them to the $20,000 because he's no longer developing that subdivision. He's held on to them 5 because he knows in 3 or 4 years when this becomes the hottest subdivision in the town, those lots are gonna be worth $35,000, $40,000. Now, when that happens, we put them on the roll at the regular value. Also, spec homes. There's a provision in the law that if you're a developer that comes in and you build 10 tract homes, as long as you fill out your builder's affidavit by April the 1st, we can keep those buildings off the land roll as long as they're not sold or rented. And again, that's designed so that you don't price a builder out of existence before there's ever any time for him to sell the home. You know, so it's not a county policy, it's a state law that allows it to be done. So yeah, so if a subdivision comes into play now, if it's approved, guy comes in and builds 10 homes on it for sale, if they're not finished by January the 1st of 26, they won't go on 26 roll. Or if he files his builder's affidavit and they're not sold or rented in 26, they won't go on the roll either. Yeah. Okay, and that, again, that's for economic development. That's for you to be able to offer a developer something to come into the community and build something. Because if not, they couldn't afford it to be, could run free.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, the last page has my number on it. I think all of you have my number. Feel free to call me anytime that you need something. If I can help you with something. I hope this answered a few of your questions. Typically, it generates more questions, so, you know, please, I mean it, feel free to call me. And if I can answer on the phone, I will, or if we need to spend some time, I'll be happy to do that as well.
Sure.
All right, thank y'all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jimmy.
All right, perfect.
Ready to take over?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm sorry I was a couple of minutes late. I actually realized about 5:20 that I didn't make copies. So we got to the copier real quick. That way everybody's got pages. And I'll try and do a better job of make sure I call the page number on, that kind of thing, to help y'all out. I know it's a lot of pages. Our plan tonight was to focus on the kind of other funds. In doing that, we have a lot of projects and special funds that are restricted. So we figured let's hone in on things that are our enterprise funds, which is utilities, capital projects, harbor capital projects, things that are related in that. Those are also things that we've got to set rates for, and kind of focus in that. The next piece stack I gave you was another general fund based on some comments and feedback that we've already received from y'all, so we tweaked that a little bit. And then finally, an updated payroll ordinance based on some other comments that have come back, and the mayor can speak to that. So on the first document at the top left, you see 400 utility fund revenues. And that's page 1. So what the administration was recommending, basically a no increase in gas rate, however, a 4% estimate for other utilities, as well as there's a CPI in the garbage rate that's automatic in May. I think it's April or May. I think it's May. That,
It'll come in October.
Solid Waste Authority will increase that we have to factor in. So again, it might be 2.5, it could be 3, but you know, we're budgeting it 4 just to be safe.
Yeah.
So
and
again,
when
it
we
could
get
come under, but
closer
it's gonna
into
be whatever
dialing-
that actual is.
When we get closer to dialing in, same thing with utility authority, we will find out if, you know, if the cost of, waste disposal goes up, anything like that. We'll have a better idea on where we need to be, so. When it comes to it, you know, we'll sit down and say, you know, our gas is good, you know, we're doing good on gas and everything. Water, we just had a rate survey done a couple years ago, and of course, we're on the lower end, but we've been able to do very well on it and everything. So I think last year we froze, year before we went up like 3% cost, you know, and then this year we're looking at going up between 3 to 4% to cover, you know, the ongoing expenses and all. And you know, a lot of our stuff is getting old, starting having more troubles and all, repairs and everything. So that's what we're looking at, you know, throughout the budget. In that also, a lot of it is an in and out, and we try to match up, you know. The water, you know, we produce water, our own water. We always have opportunity to buy from the utility authority if we ever need water in emergency, or if we just choose to buy water from them. We do have a well coming in, we're probably 2 years out on that. Something, you know, we have a grant to fully fund the well at no cost to the city. But anytime we want to, if we decided to ever get on water through the utility authority, it's just an opening a valve on Washington Street. So that's an option that's always there. Again, garbage collection is an in and an out. We charge exactly what they charge us, and we do pretty well on collections to get what we need for that. Wastewater, same thing, we're pretty close. We have a wastewater, and we also have a sewer. The wastewater is the income that we try to pay our utility authority with. It's usually pretty close to what the expense is, but the sewer is also there to cover any costs that we don't have collected, but it's also there for repairs and everything. And what we did with this a couple years ago, we came in and our workforce, we divided that up into everything equally, to where the water is responsible for, I think it was 25%, we did quarters, I think it was. Wastewater, water, gas, and then the sewer and all. So we take all of our expenses in there from personnel and everything and put in there as an expense. That way everybody is covered, those expenses are covered, and then it breaks down from there to each item. Like the water, we have separate line items for water bill, you know, repairs and this and that, or sewer repairs and everything, lift stations, all that's broke out separately. But the payroll is, when we figure up the price of water, all of those costs go into what we're looking at for water, what we look at for sewer and everything else, gas and all. And of course, we got, you know, our normal expenses year to year. We have our insurance, which, you know, hopefully we're hoping for a decrease. We budgeted for an increase, but hopefully with a good year with the storm, we'll see a small decrease again, you know, start getting back to that. But that's all your revenues coming in on page 1. If anybody's got any questions about them. Page 2, that's our administration. That's the ladies at the desk downstairs, Linda and 2 personnel with her. This is the expenses that they incur in their section of the utility department. Page 3, this is all of our workers. Ronnie is figured half into this. Utilities getting paid from, and half of it's coming out of the general fund for his salary. What we're looking at for this and that on the general side is looking for someone that can come in and run day-to-day operations in the utilities. It free Ronnie up. Right now, he's running both departments. It's very tough, a lot of paperwork and all that, plus trying to keep up. So we did, if you remember last meeting, we had, when we looked at payroll just in general, we had 2 positions for labor in that. We took one of those labor positions and increased the pay, thinking this is gonna be a cost that we think we can get somebody to come in and run that part. And I think we budgeted somewhere around $30 an hour for it. The going rate's probably maybe a little more than that with some departments, you know, in the utilities and all, but that's a pretty good going rate, trying to get somebody to come in. What it will be a salary position, and we will be doing this with the same personnel if we get this going in the public works. They will be salary. The only overtime they would get would be in a storm or a state of emergency that is declared city emergency, to where we get reimbursed for overtime and all, then they would get reimbursed. If not, they on salary, and they know that they still on call. They'll be answering calls just like they do now. The person in public works that we're looking at over there, this is about what he makes anyway with his overtime that he gets, you know, from call outs and everything else. And so it's just laid out with him, you know, to where it would be just broken down on a monthly basis and all. But anyway, you know, as you know, we went in and replaced all our gas meters last year. It has allowed us to really get a good grip on what we're collecting and the usage on these collections. And it's done through the towers. I think
It's a cellular read.
we have 2 of them, I think it is, throughout the city that reads the gas meters. And it has really, really helped us on our collections. And so that's all been updated and everything, and I think that's why you see a little more revenue than normal. We do keep our gas rates flat. We'll keep watching it. One thing we don't want to do is up and down, and when gas skyrockets or something in the wintertime is when you really hit the people that use gas hard, when, you know, in the cold weather and all, and a lot of that's our elderly and everything too, you know. So we try to keep it flat throughout the year, and they can budget what they have and everything a lot easier than up and down. But if we do need to reduce it, we see we need to, we will. You know, whether it's a couple dollars, 1,000 cubic feet or whatever it is, we always continue to watch that. So that was page 3. That's our personnel and supplies and everything and
Yeah, let me
services.
call out just a large item on page 3 that y'all see is that kind of coming down under contractual services. About halfway down, you see wastewater treatment, 1.1 million. So that's the payment to the Hancock Utility Authority for treating our sewage.
So,
You know, and that's again, when you look at your bill, you have a wastewater charge. So that charge, all the revenue from that charge should generate enough to pay the wastewater bill from the authority.
yeah, and so what we're doing now, you know, we have an ARPA grant. I think it's total $8 million, somewhere in that neighborhood. We're lining our line, our piping. That's our main line, everything. What's that we're gonna do our lift stations and all. What this is gonna do, one thing hopefully, it's gonna bring us into the next 50 years without having problems. Second of all, it's gonna stop a lot of infiltration coming into our line where the ground seepage, you know, whether it's a leak in the line, whatever, it's getting water in, and we're treating water at the plant, being charged for it, because it's still going through our meter at the end of it. So any infiltration we get, whether, you know, the heavy rains when they down in that, so it's really gonna help us on that. We think we should see on those rainy days, when our bill, some months when you get a lot of rain, our bill might jump up $10,000. We hope that doesn't happen. You know, I think we got, you know, it's gonna help us a lot on that. But that's one of the things that we'll work with them and see on that, and try to keep those rates as low on that
Is
as
that
well.
project complete?
No,
No, it's in progress right now.
it's in progress and we're getting ready to go out for, because
What area of the bay are you on now? I know you've been in Old Town.
They're all
yeah,
over the place.
they've been through a lot of it, but we're getting ready to go out for some bids, for some extra work. This is one of the few projects that ever came in under budget. And so we're very blessed with that and be able to take some of this money and do some other repairs that we're looking at as well. And one of that is lift stations and everything on that, to go in and look at our lift stations and get a list of what is in each lift station. We don't have that. We've got 46, yeah, somewhere in that lift station. We couldn't tell you how many motors this size we got, this. So they're gonna go in and do that, put everything together in a spreadsheet. We know each lift station, what's in them, and what, everything going forward. Could be a big help. Plus they're going in and do some more lining on the, all the holes and everything, manholes and everything for that.
The other item, just if you go up about 4 accounts, is the garbage contract for $966,000. So that's us paying Hancock Solid Waste Authority for them picking up garbage. And again, we charge that directly, and then it flows through us, flows to them, and then they write the check to Coastal. Those are just a couple of big ones in there you see.
One quick question about the payroll slide of it. So I was just looking through the payroll ordinance. Just here, like some of the positions, so I just want to make sure I'm reading it right. It has the 2025 budget, and then their current rate, and then the 2026 proposed budget. So some of them their current rate is less than the 2025 budgeted amount. So are we assuming that, are those, say, I'll just pick the one, the top one on the very last page of it, for the land tech. You have current rate of 15, or the budgeted rate of 2112, current rate of 15, 2026 budgeted rate's 2175. So for that person, while the position is only increasing 3%, that individual will be getting a $6 raise?
No.
Or we're just gonna
No.
move them?
That's one of the positions we're creating. He's stuck in that, he was put in that position because they hired him to come in to work with Debbie and all, but no, he won't get that pay.
Okay.
But that's that position that's getting that pay, not that person.
So even, jump down to number 14. It's the same situation. It's budgeted 1851. His current pay, 1650.
Yes,
And then the 2026 budget amount is 1907. So
that's
the three,
that position.
that's that one?
That's that position that can make that,
Oh,
up to
the
that.
position can make that, but that's not necessarily what we're gonna.
No, and what it is, sometimes, some of these, they come in and say, I can dig, I can do this, and I can do that.
But we just have the ability to pay them that. It doesn't
That's
mean
right,
that.
that's
Okay.
right. And so, come in and prove yourself, and then we can bring
We
you
can
up
get
and
you there.
pay if you can do what you say you can do,
Sure.
And it's worked out pretty well and with these pays, we've worked hard throughout the last 8 years, and, talking with Josh earlier, it's amazing where we've come from in salaries and all, and that we're paying. Is it still enough for some? No, I don't believe it is, but we're getting to where we're competitive, and we're able to keep some of the people that's coming in. It's hard to train them, and then they leave, and then if we can get pay up, then we have an opportunity to keep them and all. And we got some pretty good people, and I think it's starting to work, and I think Ronnie's finally, this is one of the first times, if you look throughout, we lost one of our little operators over there in utilities, little Quentin, and I think that's the only position we have open in public works and utilities, that they are that full. Now, some of them not, what we're looking for in those positions, but they're learning and taking responsibilities to learn. They want to learn and all, and want to move up. So it's a good thing that we're starting to get people and all people wanting to come to the city. But Josh, you've been here 8 years. Larry, you can remember back then. I don't think we've ever had utilities and Public Works full, and we're pretty close right now.
One thing I was looking at on the income compared to the revenues is, only about 100,000 increase if we did the proposed budget increases, but about 206,000 of expenses on payroll increasing. If you're looking at page one,
Page one
looks like
of
we
revenue,
look like about 124,000, but 24,000 look like it's garbage collection, which is just a pass through. So
yeah,
about 100,000 in increased revenue. But on the back page, the payroll is gonna go up about 206,000 plus 12,000 from the admin side on the page two. So almost 228,000 in increased payroll with only 100,000 increased revenue
yeah, I saw that,
is a loss.
I'd have to go through it and all, whether
I
we
think
cut
we
some
need-
expenses out of it to make up difference too, but we're
Now-
still showing,
Or like they said in the mail, you really gotta charge a rate that covers your fees. That's
Yeah.
just pure business, pure simple. That
that's it.
if we wanna give $228,000 in raises, we need to raise enough revenue in the top to cover $228,000 in raises, cause if
And
not,
that's one thing as
we're
we
gonna be
get closer.
400,000 behind next year, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
no, and that's one of the things, is when we said we don't know if it'd be 3%, 4%, whenever it gets closer,
Yeah.
we'll be able to tell. Once we get there with some of the final number that we're collecting this year, we'll be able to see that coming in next
I
year.
think
'Cause
they
I think
need to
this year.
at least wash, you know?
Yeah,
At least, at minimum, be my opinion.
cause if you look right now, we are pretty much balanced on our budget right there.
And again, part of the
Yeah.
budget process, or before, probably the first meeting in September, that's where we'll put, what are those rates for harbor, permitting,
Mhm.
utilities? So the council will set rates for 2026.
I
And
think
that'll,
we
that'll
ju-
come after, so I mean,
I think-
again, that's when you'll finalize that.
Now,
But
with,
from a budgeting revenue, we're just kind of looking at basically a 4% total.
yeah, so I think,
And again, you're gonna see some more house growthing, so there's other
Mhm.
things that you're picking up too, kind of like we just learned with the taxes.
yes, utilities, we would take a lot of houses to make a big impact on utility rates at $10, $9 a month on water, you know? I mean, it takes, you need 1,000 homes to make a big difference
Yeah,
next
you
year,
know,
so,
take water, for example, it's $1 million revenue roughly.
yeah.
4%, was that $40,000? That's your revenue you increase by increasing 40%.
Mhm.
That's over, I think we got roughly 4,100 customers, 4,200 customers, counting our commercial rates and everything.
Yeah.
So, $40,000, 4% of $1 million,
Mhm.
like you said, it's not a lot when you think about it, over 4,200 accounts.
No, mm-mm. I just want
And
to
look, our rates, and
we can't
we've
always.
we've been able
Mhm.
to keep our rates low and still build and do what we needed in our capital maintenance fund and repairs as needed. We've been very fortunate, and we've got a great collection rate. Linda, that department does a great job with that and everything, and they've come a long way. And again, I think with the meters being read and been identified, I can't tell you how many of the MIUs, which is our readings on our meters, I don't know how many, probably thousands we've replaced over the last 8 years, 6 years, whatever now. So we're getting better reads. We've had bumps in the road where we've had to go back and pay some customers, because they were misread and this and that. But I think we're on a good note with this, and we're getting what is owed to us. And I think that's some of the increase in revenue you're seeing as well.
Speaking of that, I see Delta Water still in here. Are they still?
Yeah, that's gotta come out. I saw that, and I didn't get a chance to tell Sissy, I think it's 12,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gotta come out.
Okay.
Where is that?
Delta Water on
Page 2, under contractual services.
The first line. item.
very first line,
So
12,000.
when we make the budget, we actually they copy FY 22 into 26, so you literally, that's just a
Yeah.
carryover, but we gotta go take it out.
Okay.
And to Josh's point, the increase in the revenues does, barely offsets or doesn't offset the payroll increase. Where was the cut made to zero it out?
You'd have
was
to
it
go line item.
It's just
item.
little by little
Yeah,
zeroed it out?
yeah.
I didn't know if there was one major thing that might have come off, but it's just little by little.
No, and you also have, factor in some beginning balances that we do do
Terry
carry,
brought
not
it.
account.
Okay.
This, yeah, this
Yeah,
doesn't have.
I see the beginning balance in here.
I don't-
I'm looking at the payroll ordinance. I see with the police department, of course, I missed the last meeting, so I'm catching up with you guys. It looks like they're getting the biggest as far as the 6% if we stay with that. And then our first responders with the fire department, approximately 4. But there are some positions on here that are marked for 7%. So are we budgeting that 7% into our total payroll?
No,
Okay, because some
that
of
was
those
just a
positions.
mistake. Yeah,
You're talking
I
about
didn't
fire?
catch that last meeting.
Well,
Which one are you talking
well,
about?
about
the-
fire?
No, actually, it's on the police department, but there's like 3, 4 positions that don't exist. So I hate for us to be budgeting for them, and there's no one in a corporal position.
What position? Corporal, this is something in their meetings they've asked, they reduced the sergeant position by 1 and took that dollar increase from that and divide, or whatever it was, $1.20, $1.10 extra that they make, and divided that up and created 4 corporal positions for a chain of command on each shift. So that was a wash. That sergeant position went down to regular patrol officer position. So what the sergeant made extra is divided up between the 4 corporal positions.
Even with that 7% added.
Well, that
So
would
it'd
be, that
be
would make that
above-
7%. With that, because that is a new position,
Right.
but as far as cost goes, it's no extra cost because it was that dollar something, whatever it is, I don't know the exact, but it was a little over $1 difference. That is divided up between those 4 positions.
About a few years ago, council did approve or was talking about doing longevity pay as well with educational pay for the police department. I believe they approved that. Josh, you may remember or may recall, but I don't believe the police department ever saw the educational pay increase.
We
So I
did
would
do
like-
longevity pay.
We did longevity, but not the educational part. So I would like just to consider, and maybe instead of a 6% across the board for patrol, to maybe, since we're looking at retention right now with our numbers being low, maybe increase the pay that way if they have the educational background.
I don't think anybody get an education overnight. I mean, either they have it or they don't.
Correct.
If you wanna reward someone for that, just like longevity pay, that would be my recommendation if you wanna do that. But, you know,
Yeah, I don't remember. I think they kicked longevity down the road after we did they kicked educational down the road after we did the longevity, I think, if I remember correctly. Do you?
Yeah.
It never got implemented on the
It never-
education
yeah.
side.
You know,
We
I don't
discussed
think we ever got a full plan either from chief maybe on how it would be implemented and what the scales would be and everything.
Mhm.
I don't recall ever seeing that.
No, we've never implemented education.
That's what I say. I know we discussed it.
It
but
definitely discussed.
We discussed it twice, but never did go any further with it from a
And
recommendation.
I think, if I was right, I think some other departments do that.
some do.
So that is a factor, again, you certainly
if
just
you
compare
look-
apples and oranges or apples and apples. to
While you're on the
other
police
cities.
department, if you look, where am I at there? Where is police department?
I just know that will help retain, and then you also are attracting higher quality officers, especially if they have a degree or a background in their career,
Yeah.
instead of just across the board 6. I'm not saying they shouldn't get anything, but maybe lower that a little bit and still have the incentive.
Yeah,
Be-
if you look at this, you know, if you look at the top 2 positions there, one got 1%, one got 0.
Mhm.
Really, it's a minus 1%.
Dropped it to 70.
Yeah, so anyway, and then you look at the next 3 positions, that's at a 4% raise. And then the sergeant position you see next is the one that's been taken away, turned into regular patrol, and the difference in that pay is what's funded the corporals right there. If you see a minus 100% over that.
Okay.
Are
No.
we looking
I know
to
we're kind of jumping. but-
fulfill the assistant chief position?
We're looking at filling whether we do it now, or, you know, he's been over there by himself for the last 8 months. Whether we fill that and not the captain, or whatever, and if, you know, we're
Could the
gonna sit down and
captain
talk about
act
it.
as a assistant
They could,
chief?
you know, it would be a step that can help that, you know, the chief out and everything. I think, you know, I think we have to move on, and I don't think we, again, he's been, the last 8, 9 months, he's been by himself
Mhm.
over there and everything. And they've had some very good meetings over there, talking about recruitment and everything, and some ideas. And that's where the corporals came from. They just said, I don't know, you've been in law enforcement, but it just gives them an opportunity, since we are a small department, don't have a lot of other things they
grow.
can do. This just gives them a little rank they can get and get that pin, you know, whatever it is for the corporal position and all. So that was something they thought might be a help to, you know, give you something to shoot for when you get here, where you're not a patrol officer until someone leaves or whatever,
Right,
you know,
'cause we-
comes open.
That is a problem, not having the room to grow, so I can't see
Yeah.
the need for that, but I'm also looking, if we're gonna have 4 corporals, do we need a captain? You know, just to
Well, the
say,
corporals is down low under the sergeant
yeah,
and everything.
but you got your 4 corporals, then you
Yeah.
got your sergeants, and if you have a chief and a deputy
Yeah.
chief and 2 lieutenants, do you like we talked before, like it's kinda top heavy with administrative positions, do we really need a captain?
Yeah.
And that's something that Alvin would, have to decide with what he has planned in his future.
Yeah.
But maybe we could eliminate something else too. I hate to see 2 patrol officers be eliminated, 2 patrol positions.
Look,
Cause we about to come into parade season. You gotta think October starts all our
you know,
parade.
if we ever get those positions full, believe me, we'll be back asking for those 2 positions.
Does corporal not, patrol?
Yes.
They do.
Yeah.
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 You'll still have 5, you'll still have 5 per shift and everything, and then there'll be a couple other ones out there as well. You know, our lieutenants are pulling shift and everything, they're working patrol and all with them and all. A bailiff patrol officer, he's working shifts, you know, patrolling and everything, so what we have is working, we just need to get more of them.
Is there a possible way for the assistant chief and the captain to be like chief/captain and
No.
then meeting them? You can't.
It's just one or the other. If we choose not to, you know, fill both positions right now, then we just don't fill both positions, but, no.
Can we eliminate one of those positions and perhaps hire, like a meter maid type, maybe a
You could turn one of
civilian?
these other positions into a meter maid or whatever.
A corporal, like one of the
Corporal.
corporals?
Not a corporal, but
Or-
a regular patrol officer, maybe at a less,
Yeah, that's.
At a
you know,
lesser pay.
Corporal
at a lesser
is to
pay,
encourage
Because
because
they
I don't think they're gonna be certified. I don't know. I don't know if you want them a certified police officer to be your, you know, meter reader and all down there
I
too.
don't think we need that.
You
I
know,
think,
But I mean, I don't know the laws, who can write a ticket, or, I don't know. But it's something, you know, we can find out, get some answers for.
Mr. Reed, would it be okay, I know if they have any more questions, but to run through the utility, and then maybe at the very end, we'll circle back?
That was our plan.
I think we have, a bunch of us have some concerns about the stuff with the general fund
Mhm.
from the first meeting, but
Yeah.
we run through it and we jump back to that.
Yeah, no,
We'll set some time aside
we were
for that.
only on page 3 on utilities.
Exactly.
But
And
if-
then we went to
And then,
Payroll.
So-
payroll, then we
so,
went to.
you know, three
revenue,
is
then we went
more
to
the-
police.
The expenses and everything followed by 4, same thing, and you can look,
Don't be agitated. We're just trying to all get it. Like I said, I'm catching up. I wasn't here, so there's some things that we just
Think-
went over, but
so
we on
where are we
topic.
going?
so it's just more expense. Page 4 on the utilities, 400. Then it comes down to, you know, with all our expenses and everything there. Then you got your debt service coming out of utility, that's all on page 5, everything that's coming out of it.
that's all your lease purchasing payments for current loans for utility equipment.
And page 6 is finishing everything up, and there's a zero balance in. This also includes $500,000 going into the capital maintenance fund.
And
That
next
is a
page-
utility.
And next page, just utility meter deposits. Basically, there's no real activity if you look in that. Those are the next 2 pages. Basically, there's nothing there. If you look at utility capital maintenance, so this is your capital projects. So kind of our, I'm gonna call it a savings account that we have to have when we have projects and big things that go wrong in utilities. We also have grant running, things for projects running through here. So you see grant revenue for 320 coming in on line 2 for Ramanita. We've got some interest income. Then you see us doing some transfers as we come down, transfer non-revenue, things coming in. So that loan proceeds, 2.4 million. That is the water well, because it's a forgivable loan. So it'll run like a line of credit, and then eventually we don't have to pay it back. So they'll fund it like a grant, basically, but it's a forgivable loan.
So that's strictly for the water.
That's the water well,
So.
coming from Department of Health,
I know,
DOH.
Speaking to Ronnie, and then last week at MML, our water tank maintenance, do we have anything laid out for that as far as?
No, I think we have a meeting set up with those guys. I don't know which one you talked to, but we do have, the utility authority uses a crew, and we had talked to them before, and they come in and give us a plan on that, and we're gonna visit that this year here to start that. And what it is, just a continuous cycle where every year they come in and do something.
Yeah.
Instead of coming up with $150,000-$200,000 this year to get it repainted, clean, this and that, we'll go through, and it might cost, I don't wanna say, but maybe 40,000 a year, something like that, but it's like a 10-year cycle.
Continuous maintenance on it every year, the inside and out of the tank.
But through again, we're transferring $500,000 from operations to capital maintenance. So the funds are there. I mean, we had to add that in,
Got it, okay.
and we came to y'all with it.
Yeah.
We probably need to increase some of the other.
That is something Ronnie is definitely on his radar to
Which one,
try
John?
to have it like
Back on
maintenance
page
agreement.
3, we probably need to look at maintenance tank, but also, like repair outside lift stations. We got 60 budget, and we done spent 72 this year, you know, they only age, I know we're fixing some, we got a lot of lift stations in town, so.
Yeah.
I'd rather
they-
put more money in there and do more proactive maintenance and.
Well, that,
than
you know,
we could.
that usually, we take anything major, we can take that out of the capital maintenance fund, is where they usually take it from. But yeah, that's gonna probably come, where the agreement comes from to do our tank, upkeep and everything, and get on schedule for painting and everything when needed. They did come in, our tank's in real good shape, inside and outside.
Yeah.
So, that might, you know, we put it off a little bit now, but it's time to start looking at some type of agreement. But, yeah, our lift stations, you know, we're blessed, we
Probably
got
need a lot more in that maintenance account there, I would think, you know, to.
Well, one other factor on the lift stations is that ARPA fund.
Is it grant?
So right now, again, we're bidding, or advertising to have a company come in and basically assess, as the mayor was talking about, assess all the lift stations. While they're there, if they've got little problems, they'll fix them, okay? And, but also itemize down what are the big problems that need to be addressed. I'm gonna call it phase 4 of ARPA, is actually trying to bid that to go fix all those lift stations. So hopefully, these repairs through using ARPA funds and the grant money will help us get to where these lift stations don't have as many problems.
Okay, good.
Okay, and one,
But it seems like very frequently, it
Well,
seems like
and
Ronnie's getting a
you
call about a
kinda-
motor down.
And you're kinda making my argument. We're getting help with the SRF for the well, or for taking care of sewer. If we had to maintain our own system with our rates, we never could.
Very good point.
I mean, we're getting $12-15 million in our utilities free just about to maintain them. To be at the cheapest rate around, just about is a problem I've always saw since I've been on the council, is that we need to slowly increase these rates to actually cover our own system, because one day there might not be a COVID to give us ARPA money, or Katrina to
I think,
give us a
you know,
big
we can,
boost.
I think if we can continue to put $500,000, that's more than covering our system. You know, that's a lot
Yeah,
to be able to say.
one big blowout there, you spend $100,000 on the
Oh,
repair
it cost
overnight.
Cost us $100,000 down there in Waveland when it blew out right there.
You're right.
Exactly, that's what I say,
145 or
It don't take
500,000
long.
sounds like a lot to a regular person, when you maintaining the utility system this size, that's no
You know,
money,
one of the
really.
things, too, a heads up, we did get approved, 46 over by the casino off of Felicity.
Good.
like $1.5 million grant to redo that station.
That was through the Hancock Utility Authority, not
Authority
City of
got
Bay
that.
St. Louis.
Okay,
That grant was awarded through Restore, if I'm not mistaken.
good.
And so, this is utilities, so where would this fall? Because also speaking to Ronnie and Debbie, they need like a good heavy-duty truck, not like a dump truck, but like a
Right.
350 type
That,
thing
they're
for
looking at
hauling,
that,
for
that's in,
pulling.
that's in, that'll be, you'll be able to see that next,
Okay,
when we go through the other with their, capital projects and everything. They got money in that for.
So utilities will have, if you look, there's a revenue stream, I think it's 300,000 for lease purchase on page 1 of utilities. There's 300,000. Other funding leases, 300 grand. And then there's an outflow for capital for 300,000. We have that same type of thing in Public Works. So that, the
think
capacity
between-
is in the budget. All that still has to come back to y'all. But if there's a need like that, 'cause there has been talk about a heavy-duty truck that can pull stuff.
Yeah, I think we got close to 800,000 in capital for the 2 departments.
that should buy a truck.
Yeah. Sorry.
So I'm gonna kind of flip back to, I think I was on page 2 of utility capital and maintenance, which is a Fund 402. If you look at the top left, 402, page 2. I covered the revenue already. And again, the big stuff is your Ramonita, water well, and other capital expense that we just kind of put a miscellaneous capital expense because we probably will have something. And that's kind of it for
Where are you looking?
You said 402?
Fund 402, so if you look
utility
at the
capital
top
maintenance.
left, under the date, it'll say 402 dash utility capital and
Right,
maintenance,
what page?
and then page 2.
Page 2.
It says contractual services, and it's got some little stuff in there, doing some maintenance, but the capital outlay is your projects. So the water well is 2.4 million. Ramonita sewer project, which has
Every
a grant
time you
for.
change the account numbers, you change page numbers back to 1.
Yeah, I don't know how to fix that.
It
It's-
used
it's
to
an
run
encode.
It used to run continuous.
Yeah, so.
That would be easy.
Yeah, that
so
would
you
be
got
beautiful.
400, then you got 401, and 402, page
You see
2.
So if you flip about 2 pages, you have the modernization use tax. So modernization use tax is basically internet sales tax. We were running some things through here, but we're trying to run everything now just through the capital projects fund. So everything here really has been zeroed out from this fund, so we don't, try not to use it. That way all of our projects are in one fund. That was 3 pages that I'm passing on. And if you, again, if you flipped about 3 pages, you'd see Fund 421.
The ARPA
Where
grant.
it says
we had,
ARPA
we just
grant.
talked about.
So ARPA is, let's call it the COVID grant. So, just for history purposes, several years ago, when COVID happened around 2020 or something like that, the federal government deposited about $3.4 million in the city's account. The state received funding and the counties received funding. The city kind of sat back and waited and didn't spend that money wisely, because there was word that the state would possibly put together a grant program to distribute those funds that they received down to the municipalities. So, which happened. And so we were able to ask the county for, I think it was 700,000 of their money, and they gave us 700,000. So we paired that with our money, sent a grant request to the state, and doubled it. So that gave us about 8.5, let's call it, million in COVID money. I'm going to call it ARPA, and that's our sewer project. Okay, so this is the fund that all that money's running through. Okay, so we've got about 3 million still grant money still to be received, we're projected to receive from the state next fiscal year. Okay? And then you come down and we've got a beginning cash balance of 1.9. So the money we had in the bank from ARPA, when they first gave us 3.4, we started spending that, but we've also been submitting receipts, and then we get reimbursement back. So we've got a working capital, let's call it, with our cash on hand. So again, the new money we expect to get is about 3 million that's still coming from the state next year.
Is there set guidelines on that, like what you can and cannot spend?
Absolutely.
on?
Yeah, we have a grant agreement, and they had, approved the project. When they first did it, it had to be basically infrastructure stuff. There was, some cities took it and they had a way to put it right to their general fund, but you weren't getting a match from the state when you did that. So a lot of places needed it in their general fund, and then they didn't have the capacity to go get, it's really kind of unfortunate, to go get the match from the state.
The bad
But
thing,
it definitely
everything
is
had,
restricted.
it was a bang, bang thing. It's not like you could say, we're gonna use some of it for this and see what the cost is gonna be. Everything had to be turned in, it's gotta be finished. Does that have to be finished by this first of the year?
There's dates and
Yeah,
deadlines
yeah,
that have to be done.
It was just bang,
It
from the
was
time
quick.
you got it
So-
and finish date needs to be done.
So with sewer also, we didn't need any permitting. So other cities did some other projects, and all of a sudden you're sitting in line with Army Corps Engineer and DMR, and you've got a year delay just because of waiting on a permit. And so, when the council made a decision to go ahead and put it all into sewer, again, like the mayor said, it's basically taking an asset we have that was depreciating and basically making it new again. So give you another, hopefully, 20, 50 years out of it, and to stop the infiltration, which we're paying wastewater on. On the next page of it, page 2 for ARPA, you'll just see the expenses. So capital expense 1,500, sewer phase 2 3.5. So we expect to spend about $5 million next fiscal year through this project, and then zero it out.
Now, on that
You know.
phase 2, does that include, I guess, what you were calling the phase 3 and 4 to address
Yeah.
the lift stations?
That's phase 3 and 4, basically dealing with the lift stations.
And that's in, okay.
That's what we're calling in our own
It's phase
world.
2, but we're calling it
Yeah,
in our world.
it's all the same project to them,
Perfect,
but just for us, we're just kind of, all right, well, this ought to be about this much, and
perfect.
Again, phase 2, whenever the lining came in significantly under what we anticipated. So that gave us opportunity to, okay, let's hit the lift stations. What's the next biggest bang for our buck?
Careful, the contractor might be listening to this meeting.
I got a bid on it. So that was kind of ARPA money, okay? The next page is, we transition to our next enterprise fund. I guess I should have said this early on, enterprise funds. Your utilities and your harbor for the city are considered enterprise funds. An enterprise fund is basically has to be run strictly off of fee income. So what you're charging those rates for the slip rental or for your gas and water and things like that. And you cannot use your taxes, which Jimmy talked about earlier, to offset those other, these entities, this operation. So it has to be fee-based.
On that note, with it being fee-based, to Josh's point, so I see we're from the previous budget to this budget, we had an increase in 134,000 in the cash balance, which we're rolling that in as revenue, bringing it across, and that's how we zeroed it out. Is there any way to have the mindset of, take the cash on hand out of that, and then let's see what our rate needs to be without?
What page are you on?
Back to page 1 on the 400 and the utility fund for the revenues. So we're carrying a cash balance or projecting a cash balance of 414,000.
Right.
Which the previous year was 280,000. So that's where that additional 200,000 to cover payroll is. Is there any way to, evaluate what a rate should be without having to use our cash balance?
The answer is yes.
Yes.
That way
And-
we have that on hand for an emergency rather
And-
than.
And I don't know if that's what she's covering some of that 500,000 with, to go as a deposit into that at the end of the year. I have to get with Sissy and ask on that.
And I think that's a real good point, Jordan, because also not just putting 500,000, we still got water lines we need to expand on Washington Street and Ward 5 needs to be expanded down to the bridge. I mean, but if we just keep kind of breaking even every year and we're never gonna be able to actually improve the system ourselves.
And then
you
the
know.
years we do good if we use that money to roll back into it. I mean,
Yeah,
And
I don't know.
generally, that's, when the cash value or cash balances, increase,
Roll in.
that happens in that operating account,
yeah,
the council generally sees that balance and at some point goes, hey, let's transfer money
yeah.
into capital
Okay.
and leave it there,
Yeah.
so that's kind of what happens.
And I'm
Yeah,
not looking at cash balance tonight, but,
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll look at it and see, cause again, usually she tries to start with a zero balance. I know in the general fund,
Yeah.
we got a cash balance in that, but that's covering projects that were supposed to be
Supposed to
done
be in-
this year.
Yeah,
That's not gonna end up being done till next year to cover those costs.
Basically, you're carrying your purchase
So
orders over.
we just,
Over to
we're
it.
carrying those expenses over with us, but we're also carrying the cash that we had set aside into that also.
Perfect. I just wanted to bring that
Yeah.
up before we
Yeah.
moved on to the harbor.
I'll get an update, on that.
Circled it too. So again, Fund 450 says municipal harbor fund, so this is the operations. And again, I think the mayor projected a 4% rate increase.
Yeah, we
on
talked
slip
about it,
rentals.
we're working on just a little study on what everybody's charging again. We try to keep up with everybody. Again, we're not the cheapest, we're not the most expensive, but we have a full harbor, and I think we're the only ones that can say that. So something's doing well down there. We continue to have the 93% occupancy rate for the year and everything. Man, I looked at some of those months with fuel, and it's just unbelievable what they did in fuel for a couple of those months. And they do a good job of bringing things in. Dwayne's worked hard with a bunch out of Ponchatoula somewhere with some big cigar boats for a weekend coming in, and that's where a lot of that fuel come from and that and all. But again, yeah, we want to try to. Same thing with utility, we went a long time in utilities without raising rates and everything, and we just wanna keep, instead of having to come up in a couple of years with a hard, 15-20% rate increase, if we do it as we go, then people's not hit as hard, and they can, a little bit at a time. So same thing with the boat, we just wanna make sure we're still in the mix with a good price for everybody, and again, we don't wanna be the highest, don't wanna be the lowest, but we wanna make sure we maintain what we have, and that's the occupancy at that, because it's again, we have never spent any money on the harbor. You hear people talk about,
Out of general
this
fund.
and that and everything, which question comes, we take half the parking lot, open it up to the general public, so the question is, should the harbor pay for that half of the parking lot repairs? I don't know, something to discuss, something to talk about. The fishing pier has nothing to do with the harbor, but the repairs and all, and the upkeep of it comes out of the harbor fund. So, it's something to look at, but when people talk about,
And
the-
pre-Katrina, there was a pier there that the general fund paid for.
yeah, it was at the Alman Pier and everything.
Mhm.
So when people talk about, their taxpayers, it's federal dollars that built it and Thailand's funds that built it and this and that, so yes, that is that general, maybe some of that tax dollars into the building, but the upkeep it has come strictly from what they take in down there.
And again, if you look at page 1, if you look at, the slip rental, which is the first account, up there under charges, and then go down and you see fuel sales, how much, it's $540,000 in sales from selling fuel. It's about probably about 40% of your revenues coming, into that. The next page gets into your expenses for the harbor with the payroll and the front end. Then goes into supplies. One other thing I'll just tell you, just the chart of accounts, which is basically your account setup for cities, is basically consistent. The state auditor kind of helps provide those. And so if you look at it, they're all, whether you go from general fund to the harbor or whatever, the first section is personnel expenses, the next one is supplies, the next one is gonna be contractual, and all those types of accounts are kind of all set up at the state auditor level and passed down to cities. And so that was one thing that our accounting office has done over the last 2 or 3 years, is trying to clean that up and get us in line with the state auditor's deal. So just when you start looking at account numbers, things are consistent when it just says office supplies. It's always gonna be account 500. across the entire company.
So also with this, you know, we had damage on the south end down there from Zeta. I think I got that, Josh.
It was Zeta.
Zeta, road to Ida. So Zeta repairs for that, you know, and, we're getting ready to probably go out to award that job and all. Guys been sitting on the contract for going on 2 years now and all. So we probably gonna end up turning that loose, it looks like. But also, not sure who's aware, whatever, we had a lawsuit against all of them, all the above that was involved with building of the marina because of the wall. It's the
Not the
west wall of the harbor, the east wall of the parking lot along the sidewalk that goes along the wall there. You know, it's sinking in spots, being washed out. Long story short, we finally did a settlement a couple months ago and all, and has settled that for, you know, a dollar amount and everything. I think we have received all of that
You
money
did.
coming in, so we'll be able to move forward with those repairs as well, so.
So again, I'm still on kind of page 2 of municipal harbor operations. You know, you'll see fuel purchase expense down there in the bottom section, kind of like 3 or 4 from the bottom. You can see kind of 390,000, that's a big number. So the net would be our profit off of fuel. But that's us writing checks for, what do we buy?
Yeah,
Food
right
down
now,
in
it looks like
Warren?
we're making about 70% profit on it, but that, you know, I
Uh-uh.
asked Sissy that before we left, that's not probably accurate, because Waring is probably, we get fuel down there sometimes weekly, every 2 weeks, they probably 3 or 4 ticket invoices out, that's outstanding out there. But I'm sitting there, oh, I know we're not charging that much fuel, you know, 70% of it, so, but that's where that came from.
And also back to the payroll services portion, I was looking at the breakdown on the payroll ordinance. So they had 2 positions kind of just out the norm, 8-9%
Yes.
on there.
Um,
Is there?
It's a position they tried to get brought up in pay, that would be the first one down, the first 9%. Oh, wait, let's see, what's his name?
Is that the one Sean came to us on?
Yeah, the first one there, I hate to use names, but anyway, that's a person they feel like that is very good down there, trying to keep him.
He does like plumbing and handyman
As you
stuff.
can see,
As well, okay.
they don't make a whole lot down
He's
there,
been coming for about 3 months.
but he's
and
a good handyman,
had
very
opportunities to
good.
go elsewhere. So we're trying to
Someone
keep
that
him.
can grow out there, and he's been pretty, I guess, faithful to him down there. So that's a position they tried
He
to,
can
a couple
eventually
of
have a
months
leadership
ago.
role down there too.
The other one has been in just trying to bring that position up in pay, you know, to where it's a little more than what in line with other personnel. She's been down there probably at least 3 or 4 years, maybe even longer than that, so.
Perfect, thank you.
We do have Wi-Fi out there, so you see internet expenses. It's one of the benefits that was added several years ago to the boat slip owners, that they can have access to. Page 4 on it, you'll just see a transfer indirect out for 25,000. That's being sent over to the general fund. We kind of talked about, I think, that the last 2 weeks ago. That's kind of offsetting some of our administrative expenses inside City Hall and other things.
Should we,
It's a small number overall.
page 2, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Page 2.
Legal fees, should we see a reduction this year since that suit?
That number should drop. That
Yeah,
looks
we
like
should
it carried
see it.
over, but the legal stuff on that is done.
That's what I say, so.
So that number should
go
drop.
down.
We're hoping that
So I
number
circled it
down.
and said, that's a carryover from, again,
Okay.
from FY '25 into '26, and it shouldn't be
Josh,
there.
what they'll do, if that does drop down and whatever, that'll go into their, capital
Capital
maintenance as well.
Yeah, all right.
So also at the harbor, Sean and his team have done a good job. Moffitt and Nichols did an assessment of the harbor and kind of looking at maintenance and ongoing things. So there's a report that they received. And so every year they're kind of working that report on things that they need to do just for general maintenance and just kind of upkeep. We also, I think we had some grant money left over, and I think it was a Tidelands grant, like 20 grand or something. And one of the things we replaced I think it was a 4 inch, it might be 2 inches, of a water line from like the beginning of the harbor going out to like Pier 1 and 2. So that with the cold weather and stuff, those pipes break and they've got to go out there and continuously repair. So it was a thicker pipe or something that they were doing, but we had a plumber go out there and do that. And we used grant money to fix it. Now I go to 451, and again, it was special grants and special projects. We kind of are closing this fund out. So the only thing you see there is kind of a transfer out on page 3. And we're putting that into the 452 account, which is capital projects. So that way everything's kind of, all the project kind of stuff happens in that one account. So there's really no activity in 451, except that one transaction. In 452, which should be our last section, so.
I'm sorry.
You see hurricane reimbursements, $4,085,000. That's our FEMA payments for dredging the harbor and for the south wall that was damaged. And then we have a Tidelands grant for $557,000. That would be used to help with the settlement repairs that the mayor was just talking about through the legal system. And then as we come down, transfers, you see transfer in from 345 to 256. And then we kind of, it's the loan proceeds. We do have a grant anticipation loan for $3,420,000 for that south wall. That's basically a short-term line of credit to fund that FEMA project. And then once we get FEMA proceeds, we got to pay it off. The proceeds will end up paying that off, but the loan will help us cash flow the project, so we don't
That
have to
would
use.
be on the reimbursements from FEMA.
Yeah.
When we get those, we just pay that as we get reimbursed from FEMA.
And again, we have a beginning balance in this fund of $600,000+. If you go to the next page, page 2 deals with some the expense of capital outlays. You see capital expenses, $1257. Harbor repairs, that's the basically settlement, what we have to pay for settlement repairs. And you got dredging for $700,000, which is a FEMA project, and harbor Zeta repairs, which is south wall, for $3.6 million.
Can I back up for one more second? I'm sorry, I'm behind sometimes. Page 2 of the harbor,
Yep.
Operations or capital?
operations, I'm sorry, 450 account.
Okay.
Repairs and maintenance outside, like 7,500, and repairs and maintenance equipment, let's see here, 3,000.
3,000.
I think those need to be increased. I walked there and they got a lot of boards that's alligator crack and needs to be changed. There's a lot of, I don't know if anything's gonna be done in the big projects or if we got to do that in-house as part of our general maintenance, but
We could do that.
if that,
Especially if we,
if the legal fees
legal
go
goes out, we
down,
can
we
stick
need
it
to
there.
probably throw it to there and start taking
Okay.
care of some of that stuff. Cause it's, I see a lot of them boards and stuff are getting weathered
yeah,
and
and that's part of the ongoing
and is it-
upkeep that they have to do.
Is it time to start looking at,
going some kind of deck or different material on it a little bit at a time.
you know, the grading is the ideal way to go. And we probably messed up when we did this 5th pier.
We should've done
A
it
lot
then,
of, we
probably.
should have tried to go ahead and get the funds to do grading instead of boards in.
That
At least
stuff's
we'd have had the
expensive.
5th pier done.
Yeah.
No, because it's a pretty good expense.
But if
Something we do
But
need
it
to
lasts
look at
forever.
though, to find something,
Unless the water through better and all that.
definitely.
Might be something to look at and start doing some
Yeah.
sections each year or something. I mean,
And on the walkways going down and all that might be something we look at, you know, 'cause with the decking that's coming up top is gonna be those you know, the boards and everything. It's not gonna be that lumber and all.
yeah.
So, do we
Okay.
change out some of that as we go through while it, you know,
Yeah.
we'll see what we got.
I just thought them figures were low. Thank you.
And I mean, they could probably cover, I mean, projecting 38, so we cover that. But also, once you take the 125 out from legal fees, you really are doing
Yeah.
good in the harbor.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Would have done great this year if you didn't have
And,
that settlement or legal.
and really, it's, over the years, the legal fees have kind of eaten into that
Yeah.
a little bit because we were fighting, trying to,
But
Get it.
it
That's
it
good.
pays
I
off.
mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did pay off.
Paid off.
Paid
a lot.
off.
Yeah, I mean, that's what that 700 is in that other
Yeah,
account we
coming through.
collected.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it shows right there.
they didn't get all scot-free.
Yeah. Paid for
Recoup.
now, on the last
No,
page is just us, the
Disappointing, but
last page was just have us going back to pay off kind of that loan that we'd have to, that we'll have to fund, once,
Yeah.
once FEMA pays us.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you, in my opinion, that probably won't happen in FY '26, but we just have to budget for it. And then the next year, you probably see it budgeted again, that, you know, we'll have, you know, the FEMA paying us and then
Payback.
paying off the loan. It'll probably be
If we get on it,
27 or
maybe.
whatever.
maybe. It's MEMA the holdup, is what we found out. MEMA is the bigger holdup.
They won't pay, MEMA will not, or, and I don't know if it's our FEMA district or if it's MEMA, you have to finish your project and close it out before they'll write a check. So when you got a 3-point-something million dollars,
Right.
normal grants, every month we're sending, as we're paying bills, we're sending reimbursements and cash is coming in. With
FEMA says
stuff,
it's not supposed to be like that.
like for Zeta, the hurricane debris cleanup, some of you guys were here for that. I was up north. It was over $2 million,
2
and the city was out and didn't get reimbursed for how long?
2 years.
Over 2 years. That was Waveland, the county, Diamond Head, Bay St. Louis, and pretty much up and down the
It probably
coast.
cost us a
So it could be a
million or
couple of
better on
years
that
that-
police department.
Before we see that check actually written.
Yeah.
So just be prepared for that. That's why we said use the grant
But-
anticipation.
But
which
it's
we
my
can't take it out of
understanding,
cash.
FEMA gives MEMA the money, it's just them getting off of it, the state.
I think they might be.
I think it's staffing at the
About
state
to- right,
level. That
Yeah, it is. They don't have a
want to
lot.
process it until it's all done.
They're
Maybe they
very
process it one time.
short-handed.
And if there's a de-obligation, they get to take it from you before they give it to you.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah, do it right.
yeah.
But hopefully we got a better relationship and can get some of that going ahead of time where we're not waiting years to get reimbursed.
I think we do.
So if we flip to the general fund, I think, Jordan, you might have asked about this. I think you just made a comment. Couple of, we've kind of heard from several of y'all on a couple of items that the mayor went ahead and tweaked. There was a request from an MML, so we needed to increase a little bit more for travel, because based on the feedback from y'all compared to previous, probably see more of y'all attending MML, both winter and summer. So we can't just use previous year's history, because not everybody went in the past, so we didn't have a full participation. So we've got a little bit more there. Plus, there was requests to, about going to either small town conference or Main Street conference. So we've kind of bumped up that to have that in there for travel for the council, to make sure we've got it for winter, summer for MML, as well as possibly Main Street for y'all to go to next year, if you so choose to go. Maybe all of you don't go, but at least we want to budget for it. That way it's available to you. I've attended Main Street Conference once. I thought it was one of the best conferences I went to, just when it came to your small town business stuff and the business economic development. It's very cool, very applicable. So that's something we've kind of changed a little bit. We had some feedback on the amount of money for events, and so there was a request to kind of bring that down a little bit. I think we went down to 5,000, Mike,
I think 10 and 10.
10 and 10. Let's see. I was going to.
Which item are you?
I'm gonna tell you what I get.
Okay.
And the other one was the Christmas decorations went from 20 to 10. Those were just three. I had several of y'all had kind of communicated, and hey, kind of don't feel that those were too big numbers, and is there something else, that can be done with that?
For the,
So we did reduce, so,
for the events and promotions with the 10,000,
Mhm.
right now, looking at the previous years, how much did those even, because we're talking about the Easter and Christmas event, how much did those two take to put on each, just ballpark? You think, would 2,500 a piece be plenty to drop that down to 5 instead of 10? Is that enough to cover that?
It just depends what all you want to do,
Right now, for those two
$5
major
is more
city
than we put
events,
into it
there's
now.
$0 going to it.
Alright,
It's
so
all,
was
it's all
basically
begging,
Donations.
it's begging for people to give us gift cards and,
Yeah.
and they go out and they buy Easter eggs and get things done and same
But
thing with
I
hot
still-
chocolate or popcorn or whatever. So it's,
It's on page 8. So I still
so we
think,
did bring that down.
yeah, I saw it
based
came
on your
down.
Comments.
So I still think we would, and also just, I don't know if we wanna do it tonight, but, if there's anything we wanna, change, if we wanna have discussion, and if someone wants to try to change something, we can go through and see if everyone agrees with it or not.
Yeah, we
But
can take it,
the feedback I'd gotten, those were
Yeah,
two,
two areas,
basically,
absolutely.
Mayor and I were like, well, let's go ahead and bring those down now and kind of spread it and put, because they also had about the travel and, registration fees for the council for, other events. So we kind of tried to do a couple of things that we had picked up on.
Cause I still think people will try to come in and help sponsor it, just because I think we got some great people in the community. But I think it shows a good,
I
We're-
think your Christmas thing needs more money than
in the
your
East.
Easter.
oh, yeah.
So that's what,
Well,
I
the
mean, if we
Christmas
put,
thing is to try to just buy something.
Yeah.
That's gonna, it's
Well, that's
not,
under decorations.
you know, something that's gonna be there. And each year we can just try to purchase something else, you know?
Yeah.
Like if this year we buy the big tree.
oh yeah, I was talking about the,
But the other,
Events and
yeah,
promotion.
you know, look, for the Easter egg hunt, you know, 2,500, you know, is a lot.
So events and promotion just is page 8 of the general fund at the top, like account, the 5th account down is where we were kind of talking about.
I would
And that
be,
was 20 and we brought it down to 10. Do you
10.
want to see it like at 5?
I would like to see it if I don't know how others feel, but,
So the exhibit,
ex-
exhibits
yeah.
So
and
Exhibitions
promotion,
and
That-
promotion.
that would be
the
for
Easter
like
one?
paying for Easter and Christmas
Well, not both.
stuff, not decorations.
So the
There's another
decorations
account
is
for that.
another,
Oh, okay.
another line item.
So this is just the
This is-
event
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
The event
itself,
is
like
Buying
Okay.
popcorn,
the Christmas event.
the
stuff you
popcorn,
giving
the
away.
hot chocolate,
Yes, ma'am.
whatever we would do for the kids.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Yeah, and
Well,
I think
yeah,
we can
just not
probably
that, but it's
add
also-
each year a little bit more
Yeah.
as it grows.
We could do that.
Is there a way to see how much we raised and spent last year? I don't wanna undercut it, you know, I
On
don't
what?
wanna,
But that's
The
where I
I
think
think you're
it's
still
hard
gonna get
because
some of that, but
if I get what I'm getting
He's
is
still gonna get.
they've been buying it out of their pockets in City
there is
Hall.
some of that.
Yeah, they
There's
can't do
definitely
that.
some of that.
yeah, no, we don't,
You
we
You
don't
have
wanna do
employees
that.
buying stuff, you do.
Right,
Yeah.
no.
And so
So
we
I
don't
think
really
20
have
for-
nothing to
But,
go
you know,
off
that's
of
also
because
like-
it was out of pocket
like-
in donations.
What do you call it, like when they go set up the, you know, the seminars and all. Jamie and them, or the police department, you know, when they
It's
go
a-
set up the work,
Recruiting fairs,
recruiting fairs and all, you know, try to find things for that.
like being a vendor,
Yeah.
kind of like when y'all walked around the vendor booths at MML.
Yeah.
And we,
So stuff like that.
Jamie and police and stuff will go to some of that stuff,
Right.
to promote the city for hiring. So that is some stuff that is done, we pay to do that.
I think as a start, I'm all for changing it to 5, and then if we need to do something in the middle of the year, I don't know how anyone
Like I
else
said,
feels.
$5
I
is more
think
than
I
what we
think it's
do
better
right
than it
now.
was
What we
yesterday.
had, yeah.
You know, I mean,
7.
Yo,
I'm okay with
Yeah,
it,
what-
like I said, especially if we add as we grow
Grow
to
to
it, start
There was-
smaller and add each year. We got
So
4
y'all had
years
told me there's another account on here
for decoration.
yeah, there's another,
line.
but later on, there's one for,
So if you go to
Decoration.
page, are you talking about Christmas?
Yeah.
Okay, if you go to page 11, it's a building and grounds. So this is the depot grounds, basically. Under, towards the bottom, basically last account says Christmas decorations, 10,000. That was 20, and we moved it down to 10. And then basically, I think what y'all found at the MML vendor that sells that big Christmas tree.
Yes.
You can buy those in 4-foot sections, so you can always expand it. You know, so next year, if you wanna buy another 4-foot, it can go, and you can keep growing. But if you wanna start with like a 12 or a 15-foot tree, and then next year, add 4 feet, and then boom,
Do we
it'll
know how
pop up.
much
So that's something
that
that can
tree
be done.
was?
It was-
$12,430 for 19 foot with a top.
Okay.
What did you say?
I could barely hear you. Lynn, I'm
12,000.
sorry.
Go ahead.
About 12.
12,000, I think it was 12,632, 19 feet with the top,
So,
with the lights and.
Oh, that's the
before
whole
it
tree
comes
though, right? The whole
in. That
one
was the 19 foot.
feet.
Right.
Okay. So we getting rid of our 6 foot?
Somebody cut the top out of it.
yeah, if
I
somebody
still
cut the
haven't went
tree.
out there and looked.
We're gonna
But
check
again,
it
that was the
again.
comment we got back from y'all, and so we
Yeah, I
kind
like the
of
tree.
reduced that back, because there was a lot of feedback on it. Okay.
Cause if we do
If
the
y'all are good
tree,
with that?
then
Yeah,
we just
and
have to
where did the-
recycle what we have,
I'm
then,
sorry.
right?
Was
No, I
that,
was just saying if we do the tree, I think pretty much a lot of us wanna do the tree.
Right.
But, so then the following year, we'd be actually adding the decoration or decor for the rest of the city. So we just recycle what we have currently, add the tree,
Yeah, I mean,
and then next year,
We could do the tree as a focal point this year,
Mhm.
and then add on stuff as the years go on, you know, with.
yeah, if each
Yeah.
year you
Snowflake.
spend a
We
little
have
bit of
stuff
money,
already.
that
Yeah,
you're gonna
we
see
do that, we
just,
can recycle year
Ah.
from
having
last
more of a
year.
We
professional.
have stuff already.
Oh, yeah, they're
that
gonna,
we
I would
can
just like to
use.
Got
add to
storage.
that as
We have-
well, cause I
we
would
have
like
all
to
that.
see more streets with like the,
Yeah.
you know, the wreaths and the
Right.
snowflakes and stuff, since we are, focal point is
Oh,
the
right.
depot.
And I think,
and I will tell you, just, I'm gonna defend Ronnie for a minute. It takes them literally probably
Yes.
2 months
right,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
to start putting up Christmas decorations.
Now with this tree, I
buy
do wanna
more,
ask,
take
do we
three.
have a
Means-
storage
That
for
means
it?
manpower who's not doing something else.
Yes, we buy more, they'll take 3 months.
what?
Storage.
Oh, storage,
storage of it?
Yeah, we
Who-
need to
So they
think
move
about
straight
that
from cruising the
because
coast
that's
right
a good
into,
investment.
it's a good question.
So,
Yeah.
right, they go straight from cruising the coast right into Christmas
And
Yes.
with,
setup, so it's
Long as
ready
we can
for
keep our
right after
hands.
Thanksgiving.
with events with tourism, who actually owns the snowflakes right now we put up?
Generally, the individuals, have purchased those at their houses that are around town.
No,
Are
I
those
mean,
what
ones
you're talking
hanging
about?
all the oak trees on Main Street.
Right, or,
We've got some, and then I think they
We
got
have a bunch.
Okay, so we do have some.
Oh, yeah, we have a bunch.
there's a bunch on Citizen Street, I
Yeah.
think. They put
That's
up.
private.
But private, there is
That's
some
all.
Yeah.
people who have their
Valentine.
private ones.
Valentine,
And we,
Yep,
Yeah.
Valentine.
we assist with putting them up in the
Nikkei's.
right-of-way areas.
Now,
Now,
what,
did we wanna do something to bring people, from the, bridge toward,
we're working on that this year to light up from the bridge to maybe Washington Street.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we got enough to go to Washington Street or just the railroad track.
gotcha,
But we're looking at going to that. We're looking at coming off of Main Street to Nikkei's in front of, go down Nikkei's, tie into Depot back that way. Then the next one would be coming down Second Street down through there and just make it to where, you know, it's all connected together.
so are we gonna use this, are we gonna keep the ceremony at the courthouse, or are we gonna move it to the
No,
depot?
we
So
at
it's at
It's
the
at
depot.
Depot
We at
now.
the Depot.
Okay,
We're at the
We
depot.
at the Depot last couple of years.
alright,
We moved that.
Last two years?
now the,
November 29th.
I
Now-
did,
the 25,000 that we saved from that, or I guess not 25 now, the 20 right now. So I was looking at, I looked at the municipal reserve and emergency fund, thinking it was gonna go there. Where did that get spread up?
Well,
Spread
we had to put the 44,000 back in for our contract with Mississippi Power right now, so we're not sure if we're gonna be able to get out of that this year.
Okay,
So 44,000, some other things went into that.
Okay.
I'm gonna
mean, I
throw a
think-
curveball.
I think, let's see here.
I know
I
someone
had
who
it
put some
through
good-
here.
Mhm.
There's still 16,000 out there.
There's 16,000 in excess or 16,000?
To the good, yes.
16 to the good.
Revenue.
good.
Through your budget, but what'll happen in June is.
You wanna start a
Well,
fund for
it's kinda-
dredging?
Yep, that's what that's what
What is
was
that?
going out,
Start a fund for dredging with $16,000 in it?
yeah, if we can earmark it for that.
And it's something we get out of that other contract
Or we
that
can take
go
4 out
into.
the Christmas decorations, make it 20.
Huh?
We can take 4 out the Christmas decorations and
make it 20.
make it
can do
20. And have
we took out-
6,000 for that.
What did we
Huh?
just take out?
So we're
5?
down, so that would be 6,
That'd be 6,000 for Christmas decorations this first year and put
Is that-
4,000 more to that
That's not
dredging.
enough, well, it's
think-
not gonna be enough to buy our tree.
Mm.
I think we still try to find a sponsor for our first year to offset it, someone wanna match us. Come on.
And look, we're working
Be
on that. If
creative.
something happens, we do get one with, that money will still be there. If that's the intent is to purchase a tree, if we find a sponsor for the tree, then we'll,
But I agree, I think the dredging's very important, especially 5
for
and
5 and
6.
Yeah.
6,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
big time.
and I mean, like you said, first year, anything's better than
No.
what we've, than
Mhm.
nothing, so
Yeah,
I think that would be a great idea.
exactly.
I did have a question from one of the members of council about CASA.
Yes,
So if that's something y'all wanted to look at, but we did not change anything with allocations.
yeah, we need to do
That
that.
was just something that has come up, I think from a couple of y'all that
So with
spoke to me
the,
about, but again, I'm just kind of hitting the highlights that people
Yeah.
have talked to me about.
Didn't we talk about getting maybe a table or something?
is there a way to do it through sponsorship or
Right.
marketing rather than just a monetary
Yeah,
donation?
you could open up a hall to them to use, or,
Yeah, I think something like an in-kind or a, some sort of sponsorship. I know they have levels where they give, the city of Bay St. Louis will have some branding, with it. I think maybe we can reach out to Ms. Cynthia and see what's available, and then we can get a dollar amount and know what we wanna put in, if we wanna put it in.
Yeah.
Cause I think, I know she has sponsorship levels. That way, every flyer they send out, every event they have, we'll be on there and we'll get something out of it while supporting them.
Is that a line item, Councilman?
Not at the moment.
Not at the
At
moment.
the moment.
Also,
That didn't come up from Mel before, except just on the sides, a couple of people have talked to me, and
yeah, also with like
So-
Crime Stoppers, like how does that work?
I think we,
I think part of our tickets go to
yeah, we
that
do.
revenue.
So the
There's a-
revenue from if the offender pays the ticket, part of that goes to them.
There is something in our tickets that gets,
Yeah.
when it goes to the state, and there's like $1 or whatever it is, there's an agreement with that. I could find that out for you to give you exact, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, because I don't think that the city
Front
itself puts anything towards them as well. I know they do a lot as far as helping us solve crimes.
Let me find out exactly.
Cause they
It's
came,
not coming in my head right now.
a couple of years
there
ago,
is
they came
something.
and asked where we had to approve something for them to get $2 or something.
They
It went from
increased
$1
it,
to $2 or
Increased
something.
it
Yeah.
$2 or
There's
something, I
dealing
think it
with,
was, to
with,
the
I
ticket.
think through the court department
Okay,
process.
yeah.
Yeah.
there
So
was
there's
something
money
like-
gone, I just don't know,
Right.
Where it's
I don't wanna
coming
tell you the 100%, I'll find that out and send that out to you.
I remember an increase we done
Okay.
a couple of years ago, but I don't remember the exact numbers.
Yeah,
But they do a lot of good stuff,
Yeah,
Mhm.
you know.
somebody came in on that.
And also just for FYI, for cities to give what's called kind of allocations or sponsorship, cities can do sponsorships.
Mhm.
You know, that's one thing, but a direct donation allocation, there are laws regarding that.
No,
I
you
have to
can't.
get Heather in here to give the exact stuff. So,
Yeah, 'cause I mean,
you know, there's certain things like CASA, believe it or not, chambers and main streets are all allowed. Boys and Girls Club, I think, might be one, but don't hold me to that. But there is some laws on, you can't just give every nonprofit
Right.
Right.
well, that's why I think the sponsorship.
But I'll
way
find
is
out, I'll call Cynthia and ask her, in fact, I think I missed a call from her earlier. But I'll ask her and find that out, and send that to you, with some options like that.
Yeah.
I know they do event stuff, but
Can we do a comparison, or can y'all, I'm sorry, locally, police chief, fire chief, see if they're in the same pay category, if one's more, one's less, and just see how we are on that, comparable to,
on the Chiefs,
yes,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
positions there, just with other municipalities locally or similar to our size, maybe.
And just kind of tagging along on that, I don't know what the county's at, but prior to the meeting, I asked Mr. Ladner what the county was doing for police. They did 3% across the board, but they did a little extra for patrol.
yeah.
Well, it's not approved yet, but that's what they're recommending, because the top of it isn't the hard part to recruit.
Mhm.
Patrol is. So I think that's a good viewpoint.
They're going to, they trying to bring the patrol up to what ours is.
Ours is. So,
Right.
I mean,
Mhm.
I think we're
But you're right. it's-
something to
it's
look at.
patrols and-
They did it for patrol only. I don't know.
And
we
one
wanna
of the
mimic
things,
that.
you know, they got so many departments,
Mhm.
and that,
And that's something
Yeah.
money can't compete with sometimes, if they
No.
want
Right.
more room
and you
for
got
like
some
an
that can
event.
ride the buffer zone in no
Right.
man's land for 12 hours and may not see a person.
They'll see a hog.
But I mean, you know, they might like that. They got the
Yeah.
school research, you know, they do the schools and all, which is an opportunity and all,
And I'm kind of
you know.
on a lot I know we got some that's based on performance and duties and different responsibilities they may have taken on, getting a little bit more, but I'd almost like to see a 3% kind of across the board, just 'cause my fear is we've increased pay every year since I've been on council. This will be my 9th budget, and we've always given raises. We've taken some departments and tried to get them better. We gave longevity pay. The sustainability is my concern. If we ever start having a shortage from sales tax or casino revenue or something else, how do we keep covering it? Cause just this, I haven't looked at the new one, but I think the one y'all gave us last week, we had like $350,000 increase just in payroll.
Yeah.
That's $150,000 more we collect an extra on the increase in taxes we're getting. So at some point, I think we just, if they wanna make more money, they can stay here longer and make more money, cause we guarantee them longevity pay 50 cents an hour after, on their 3rd year, you know, so 3rd, 4th, 5th year, they can start making more money than another department that pays the same that doesn't have longevity pay. That's just my kind of personal feelings. I mean, I've always supported police. My son's one, you know, I care a lot about him, but I think it's just time that we look at the financial side of things, cause that longevity pay is not really figured in here. If we get 10 cops and they stay for 4 years, we got a big increase. They stay for
It's an
another year
extra
after that.
$2, I think,
We
an
have
hour.
another big increase, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that's like an extra $2 an hour after 4 years.
After 7 years, they can
Yeah.
make up to $2.50 more an hour, I think. I think the first 2 years they don't get it, then
50
after that
cent
they
increase.
start getting
50
50
cents,
cents, so. So say forget 10 or 12 people that come on board and stay, you'd be looking at $200,000 increase in payroll just on longevity pays that's, we have in plan, but we don't really have budgeted for in the future. So I think we just need to be careful on where we go with the payroll budget too quick at one time, maybe. That's my concerns. It's not the people, it's not the personnel, it's just strictly financial.
So you're saying 3% across all police, correct?
3% there if we want to do a little more on patrol
For
and,
patrol, yeah.
you know, something like that maybe, but
Yeah, that-
yeah, that's just something to look at and maybe toss
Well,
some
I think-
numbers and,
I mean,
And that's the only thing that I was kind of getting to as well, is that the 6% is a lot considering everything else that's in payroll.
yeah. And 6% when they was making $15 an hour wasn't too bad. When they're making almost 25, 6%
Right.
is a bigger number. You know, you're talking people getting $1.50, $1.25, which is deserving, but still good money, and they're making fair money with everything, the benefits and the package that we offer. It gets very expensive.
The county,
Right. And I
county's
also
trying to
noticed
catch us.
too,
Yeah, the counties, but we can't offer what the county offers. We don't have all the K-9
No,
units.
no,
We don't
no.
have different
Right.
departments. They got room for advancement and stuff that we don't have.
I also
I was saying
noticed
they
with
made
the last
increase
one,
Trying to catch us,
Yeah.
we're
Mhm.
setting the bar for them. So,
Yeah, they always gonna chase us or catch us or beat us, and
Yeah.
but I've seen us higher, I've seen us lower, and I'm gonna tell you, it's almost like a rotating door. They get mad here, they go there. They work in Wayland for 6 months. They work at the county for a year. They
Yeah.
come back to Bay
Yeah.
St. Louis for 2 years. They're back in the
door.
county
Yeah,
3
they
years
rotate.
later.
we've all
I've
done
seen it for years. I mean, so we can keep throwing money, think we're gonna keep them, but
It's not
Which is
true.
why I think that longevity pay is a great
yeah,
tool,
I mean,
but I agree, I would be for that, I agree with you. Does anyone else,
So is there an opportunity for transfers, lateral moves from other departments for certified officers coming in? A way to put them
yeah, I think maybe do a,
straight into, longevity pay?
like,
you
skip the
wouldn't
2
get it,
years.
not the way that we set up, we wouldn't.
No, not the way, but
yeah.
So if
is
somebody
that an
brings
opportunity?
experience in
If you get
education,
certified
you can
officers
hire, is what you're
on a lateral move coming over,
Start them, get a 2-year waiver, or could we give them a 1-year waiver? Or you think just start them immediately?
anything.
Something along.
I mean, something, and we don't, that's
What's
something.
in place for lateral transfers now, anything?
Nope.
Mm-mm.
No.
Just
Yeah, they
base
jump
I
pay.
think
into the salary scale,
Just a
whatever that
salary
is.
Yeah.
Some
The idea
have
of-
that, some departments,
So-
have that. Some of them got big signing bonuses, we never compete with that.
Well, what I wanna ask is that,
Might be a
and
good
is it
way.
two different budgets with the minutes from the last meeting? We was
How y'all feel about that?
factoring in another 6 patrol cars to replace older models and kind of do that yearly. If we held that back, the 6 cars, could that increase or offset the,
Well,
it's 2 different budgets?
well,
Yes,
yeah, because
capital.
you're using a lease purchase, so the
Okay.
revenue's coming from a loan, not
I
from
mean-
taxes.
These raises are accounted for in the budget now.
Mhm.
So, if we take it out, portion of, and, and again, we tried to keep all of our, every department on the upper end raises down. You know, some got 1%, some got 2%. You know, I don't know.
Or what if we just did 4 across, 4 for the police department, 4 for the fire department?
But the difference is that 4% for fire is probably equal to more than 6% for police.
Because of the hours?
Because of the way they,
Overtime built
The
in.
overtime.
At
their
4%,
schedule is much
at
different.
4%'s about $1,600. That's 6% for an officer coming in, it's about 1,300, somewhere in there, 1,400 of salary.
Mhm.
I'm open to the idea of the longevity. If that,
For laterals?
for laterals, if that can be used as a recruiting tool.
Yeah.
Cause I mean, we're short in the department right now, but I would like to see, like Josh said, drop it, 3 across the board and maybe for patrol,
Or at least go 4 across the board and drop,
4.
and then
4.
drop the other one to 3.
Good with that,
I
drop,
would say at least 4.
4
Yeah.
4
across the board.
across the board, drop the top lines to 3.
Huh?
You said drop,
Well, would we drop the fire department as well, or do we keep them?
They're at, most of them
Let's
are
see.
at 4 at least.
Yeah. I hate to
yeah, the recommendation was 6
yeah, no,
4 basically.
4 for the first responders.
So do y'all wanna bring that down?
What y'all think?
Again, just go back to the way the math works with the
Right.
hours,
Mhm.
so it is a difference, it's not apples and apples.
Right.
That's still $1,200 raise.
Mhm.
3% roughly $1,200 for the
For
firefighter.
fire, okay.
Up the line higher, a little bit more.
So the majority of the firefighters work overtime because of the way their shift works?
They all do,
Mhm.
built in.
They work 48 on, and what would that be, 72, I think it is? No, not even.
96 off.
96 off.
Mhm.
So they work 2 all 4. And yeah, there's overtime available for them, some of 'em. That's some of the stuff we have there where,
We budget $147,000 for overtime for the fire department.
What was fire department's increase last year? Does anyone know offhand, compared
I
to
think we
police
went
department?
across the board 3% last year for everybody.
And then
pretty
police
much.
department had a big increase previous year or no?
Last year, I
No,
don't think
3%.
so.
Not a-
3%?
I'm
There's a
pretty
previous-
sure everything was 3%. Police got, and fire got their big raises 3 years ago.
Can we get a chart maybe to kinda show where we've been with them departments the last couple of years? I mean,
Yeah, I could tell you
Okay.
where it was. I didn't
I'm,
bring it
I'm
with
just
me.
looking at the salary line through it, and I mean,
mhm.
I'm okay with leaving, 4 for fire if everyone else is, or, I mean, if we wanna be
Would-
consistent throughout the city and do 3.
Would it be too much to invite them in and to maybe explain? Because they would know more about how they are compared to other cities and,
Well, we can
you
get
know-
that, but if
We
you
can
bring
probably
them in,
do
they gonna want 10%.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
that is true, we don't want that, but
Yeah.
would it be too
That-
much to?
We can bring back, do
No.
another wage
Telling you.
survey with them.
I
But
wouldn't
again,
mind.
I can tell you what
I
they're
think
gonna
if
say,
you're gonna,
just like every
I
employee.
think if you cut the police's rate, you have to cut
You
the
gotta-
other
I
one to
think you
go
gotta do
with.
both. I mean, if
To-
you
to
Gotta do
try to
both.
do
match
one, you,
them
I
up.
mean,
That way our
it's-
first responders coming up together. But I think
Let's table it, let's
that-
table it, let them give them some figures, and then we'll come back to it.
So we're higher
Could we
than that
see,
for the full-
could you get us a payroll ordinance both ways? One with the change for both of them, one with the change for
Yep.
just one? 'Cause I mean, we have this one,
you
just to
can
see
see
what
the
that
diff-
looks
yeah,
like.
you can see it,
Yeah.
calculate a difference with it.
And just
Yeah.
spit some
Just to
numbers
get to
to
that.
us, so we can see, that's the main thing.
And then is everyone okay with the longevity idea, or is that something we can visit?
Yeah, we
That-
can visit
later.
that. Yeah, that's.
I have to look at it, cause I mean, I don't know.
Because they may have some type of idea that we haven't thought of to, like you said, they're working on recruitment.
Recruitment tools, yeah?
Yeah, and do
See.
we just move everybody down to a year for longevity pay instead of 2 years? I don't know.
Right.
But I mean, if we start comparing, I mean,
Yeah.
we can't compare us to Gulfport. We
No,
can't
No.
compare us
we
to
don't.
Biloxi.
No.
I
No.
think we
We
might open
compare
the
to Long
floodgate
Beach,
if
we
we do
compare to
that.
other ones.
Yeah,
Um,
so,
Harrison County, you never be able to compete with them, the sheriff's department over, I think, gosh, I think they
Cause,
just.
you know, cause then we're taking away,
They got 15%, I think.
then we're gonna take away from the people who've been here and stuck it out those first 2 years, and if we allow laterals
It's
to
part of-
come, then the people that been here might.
So part of the idea when longevity was created, and probably you may remember it better because you were there, that, you know, you bring somebody in, you train them, you get them certified,
Mm-hmm.
and at the end of that 2-year mark, it's like, boom, hey, make money down the street. But we
Right.
just spent all the money training them,
Same
the
issue
time
with
with it,
public works.
and then boom, they're at the county or they're somewhere else. So the idea was to reward them so they wouldn't jump ship,
Right.
you know, at the end of that time period.
That was
So
the idea.
if somebody's already certified and got years of experience, maybe, I wouldn't change your longevity pay, but maybe come up with something else
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
that can maybe be phased in and maybe phase it out when longevity comes in or something. I mean, so
Yeah.
somebody walks in and they got 10 years experience and certified, and again, we can talk to Alvin about this type of stuff, but maybe have a mechanism that Alvin can, a carrot that he can throw
Maybe a
and have it maybe
signing
phase out.
bonus,
Maybe
a
it's
signing
$1
bonus
an hour.
or something.
or something, but it'll fade out once that longevity kicks in, you know.
Yeah, what, maybe a
I
sign-on
think
bonus.
longevity
that-
works. I mean, you can see there's people, you know, that are staying.
Maybe it could be a sign-on bonus equivalent to that first year of longevity pay that you pay out, but then when that kicks in, you, like you say, you trigger it off, but,
I mean, just
the
add-
longevity pay
and
was
the salary
also
scale,
for
you
the
can just
fact
add
that.
a dollar an hour to, you gotta, you know, if you've got X amount of years experience with certification, you get an extra $1 an hour.
But they might be making
But-
a lateral move from us to Pass Christian, be making $3 an hour more to make a lateral move to us certified. We don't know.
Correct.
You know, I mean, so not every department's paying what we pay. Some might be paying more, some might be paying less, so they might be coming here already for an increase in pay. And I agree, certified officer's great because you spend a lot of the time training them. The first 8 months to a year, they almost really just a ride along. I mean, they're not really can do a whole lot on their own. But the other part when we did longevity pay was, we had the issue where we had some police officers been here for 10, 12, 15 years, and the new guy would come in tomorrow making the same pay, because an officer,
Right.
we only have so much room for advancement or higher level positions, so if those are full, and you get somebody stays for 10 years, and somebody starts tomorrow and makes the same exact pay, is a big reason for longevity
Yeah,
pay also,
right.
was to try to give a gap between
Between starting.
a starter guy and there, and if we just start longevity pay there, we're gonna be shortening that gap
Yeah.
again, just about between somebody still a patrolman after 20 years or 15 years to what
Yeah.
somebody's starting pay is when they walk in the door today, and I always felt that a long-term employee needs extra, just 'cause the pay scale's set there, the way we had it budgeted for years,
Mhm.
that was not possible.
Cause the longevity pay is, I think, a great tool, and we
Yeah.
don't wanna take away from it, so
No,
anything we do, we need to be cautious to
yeah.
make
Right.
sure we don't
Wouldn't it
mess
be
up that.
Yeah.
crazy to think about maybe going under a contractual agreement with the people that we hire if we get them certification and that kind of stuff, that
I think there
they
was
promise us
something
2
that
years or something?
prevented us from doing that before.
Yeah, I would,
Be
think
a
that
if
was
that's,
some type
I
of-
would have, I would lean on Heather on that one.
I don't know how legally binding it can be.
Yeah, I don't know if that
Yeah.
legally binding,
I
Right.
don't know government-wise, but I know that there's, you know, private type,
Right.
like Mississippi Power does it, like, Sabic does it. Like, they'll pay for your education to go, you know, if you have a bachelor's, they'll pay for your master's, if you have a master's. And they will do it, but the whole thing is, when you finish that last class, you have to pretty much stay an additional year with them.
Yeah.
Right.
Or you gotta pay it back,
Oh, you pay it back.
same thing at NAMO.
Yeah.
So, but again, that's private entities, it's not
Yeah.
government, so I don't know how that works.
Yeah. I'm just one voice
Yeah,
expressing my opinion, everybody else might give a different opinion, so.
I mean, I think that's,
I agree with
I mean, if we're paying, you know, and working with them to get it, it only makes sense. Hey, you
So-
stay with us a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
you know, I would comment, you know, just thinking it through a little bit, that, okay, if y'all wanna offer some type of incentive for certified, you know, experienced people to come in, I'm making up $1 an hour, whatever that number is, okay, then, you know, that's increasing payroll compared to what your
budget.
bottom line payroll guy is right now, bottom patrol person is right now.
So,
Okay, and it could be that we want them to come in and be patrol, experienced patrol.
Usually
Not-
that's how
Don't come
it
in and be a
is.
captain, you know.
Well,
So would
if
it
they're
be
not
more-
certified, they come in at a lesser amount.
Yeah, yeah, no,
So-
no, I'm
so
talking
would
about,
it be more beneficial for the city as far as
But in order to afford it, is what I was getting at, is
As
you
far
you
as-
may need to pull down that percentage to be able to afford that other
Increasing
thing.
What I'm
salary,
saying
yeah.
is,
Increase the
is it
total
more
salary.
beneficial to say you've got the sign-on bonus
It
as
is.
one-time pay,
That is true.
or is it better to do it hourly throughout the time?
Do I?
I said, would it be more beneficial to do a sign-on bonus and you get this?
But then you got people that's here that didn't get a sign-on bonus.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
increasing base salary is doing the same thing we wanna do, whether it's an incentive to sign on, whatever, to try to get people over here. And that's fair, that way you're still here for your longevity pay, everybody's work, like we brought, you know, everybody's gotta be here 2 years, if that's what the number is. And then you get your longevity pay, and then it's still equal across the board, you know.
Yeah.
I think, you know, you got some of the big cities give you a big signing bonus, would never be able to do that, you know.
No.
One thing to look at, you know, St. Tammany, they funded their department through a millage rate that's dedicated strictly to that department.
I mean, that brings up something else. Do we wanna raise a mill in taxes to cover these bigger raises, or do we not? You know, I mean, that's.
Do you
I mean,
dedicate,
'cause-
you know, when we looked at it, originally looked at this before, a couple of years before it was implemented, we looked at taking a portion of that millage, that's when we had that big increase in millage rate and value. And so we looked at taking a portion of that to where it would go to first responders for incentive pay, and it would be put up, set aside, whether it was a half mil or whatever, it would always be there for your incentive pay to carry throughout. And you wouldn't have to worry, all you had to worry about was your base pay and all. And then this money that was set aside to be strictly used for incentive pay in the, you know, longevity pay, I'm sorry,
Longevity
in the two departments. You know,
Might be something to think about also.
Yeah.
I guess if we can get, you know, I guess two things, get the two to look at, compare them, just to see what that frees up, you know, when you make that adjustment across everyone. And then also, if we can get maybe some of the recruitment tool ideas that, you know, Chief Kingston may have, and that way we can plan for it in advance rather than when it happens. I mean, see them and then build them in. I mean, because we can come up with ideas, but ultimately, I mean,
look, they know what works,
They know
may
what-
work, what may not.
exactly. So maybe to hear some ideas from him, and see what he may need built into it rather than us trying to figure it out for him and forcing it.
Yeah.
I'd love to know how he's planning on building the
Yeah.
police department. I'd love for him to come
They,
and talk
they,
to
they've
us.
started, they put together a group, I think it's 6 or 7 of them, to do the recruitment, start,
Nice.
they wanna, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but they want him to take and, you know, create videos, you know, go at it a different way instead of just putting it on social media out there and all. But I think it was like six of them that formed that little committee and all for recruitment to start hitting it hard. I think we got an opportunity to get maybe 1 or 2 right now, the way it sounds, so, you know, see what's going on. But, you know,
Get some drone footage.
And whatever,
I think we
whatever
have a drone
savings,
operator over there.
whatever savings that would produce,
Mhm.
that's gonna go to the municipal reserve emergency fund,
wherever y'all want
or
it.
where we wanna plant, or dredging, or whatever.
Or if we reduce down, just put it to reserve, regular reserve, and if we see we need to increase it to recruit
something.
people, we can recruit
We can
again. Let's
recruit.
not put it in other line items and suck it up. Let's just
Right.
take the number, put it to the side and say,
Yeah.
if we need this, we have this tool, but if we just need something different to get people and retain them,
Yeah.
we don't need this right this minute, you know, I mean, cause we can keep throwing money all day and still have the same problem next
Right.
year,
Exactly.
but have a payroll that we can't afford.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's just reality. I mean, like Miss Jimmy said, a lot of people wish they had their value going up every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With if we flatten out, I mean, everything hits a peak eventually, and when it peaks, we're gonna have this budget set to where
So
it's gonna
the
be over the top.
So the base schools, are they going with their cap? They're the most that they can do this year? Do we know that yet?
That's four-
Yeah,
4%.
it's not gonna be, I think it's gonna be pretty close to a wash. you know, what they asking for and what the, increase is.
So do they usually do at their max every year, pretty much?
Lately, they have been, but what they're saying the same as everybody else. They, you know, from what I'm told, they got like a $400,000 increase in insurance and everything, in PERS and all. And I think they're asking for a $400,000 increase. That 4% is what that is, somewhere around
Wondering if
450,
one year they
460.
could
Oh, they have.
back a bit.
I got
and
it broke
let us
down. I
take
can
half.
show you from when we started 8 years ago, what it was, and it, you know, and it stayed and stayed, and they had the big reduction, and then it stayed and goes up, you know, maybe a couple tenths, you know, something. But what you gotta look at is 2 years ago, no, last year, there was like a 3 mil increase, but that's because funding was cut short by the state. Our city school, the new formula, screwed us to the sum of like $900,000, screwed Hancock to the sum of like $1.9 million. Our two school systems got hit for almost a $3 million increase because of the shortage, the way it's now being funded and figured how much money you get from the state. And I went round and round. We had a meeting with them and everything. And of course, the two guys that came down that created this formula, their school districts got millions more. And there's very few schools that lost money.
The coast basically took a hit.
Pretty much schools on the coast. And so the way they do it is based on the value of the mill and your mill rate. So the value of our mill is here. I can go to Poplarville. My house here is worth $500,000. That same house in Poplarville might be worth $200,000. Okay, so to get $100 here for this, you know, I might charge 1 mil. Poplarville, I might have to charge 2 mil to get that $1. So their rate, rate is high, their millage rate, whereas the ones on the coastal is low. But this formula they did, and I went round and round with Delbert and a whole bunch of them. Oh no, everybody got made whole. No, that's bull, you know. And we had to increase their millage. It was like 3 mils.
I think that was a year after they gave teacher pay raises, and then we had to fund it.
Well, what it is,
Because
I
they
think,
was
it's
talking
my
about that.
understanding, they gave a huge pay raise local. You know, state came in and mandated a pay raise
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
that even kicked the pay raise higher
Mhm.
and all, and then
Then
this
cut
happened.
Then cut
Yeah.
funding with a new formula.
And then like last year, you know, when this came through, by the time this came through legislature and all, they done signed contracts. So all their teachers was under contract and everything, and I guess they could have broke the contract, whatever. I don't know what that would have done, you know, to do it. But that was the increase we saw last year with an actual millage rate increase. The rest of the time, I'll get that out and show what it is. I have it in the office, but it'll break down from year to year what that rate was, and it'll show from when we started in 18, 17, whatever it was.
All right, the last thing, I just wanted to touch base that came up at our last meeting was our rental properties. Y'all asked me to put together kind of a synopsis or analysis of our expenses on our 4 primary, the Boys and Girls Club, Train Depot, Old City Hall, Senior Center. Obviously, the big ticket expenses are in there is your property insurance.
Yeah.
But you can see what Bay St. Louis utilities, so that's your water, sewer, gas, electricity. Then you see the property and flood insurance for a total.
So let me,
Boys and Girls Clubs pays their own Mississippi Power bill. They also have a water bill. So I'm investigating actually the 336 to find out, hey, what exactly is that?
Mhm.
And what is that? You know, so I'm looking, I'm gonna find that meter and see what it is, because
Maybe for that
it may not be
community
something
garden
we gotta be
behind it.
doing. What's that?
Huh?
Might be a community garden behind
Yeah.
it,
It might be.
Might be.
It might very well be.
because on that property, I think.
Which shouldn't be then considered,
Behind it, yeah.
have a Boys and Girls Club.
'Cause believe
Title
me,
on it,
should
but
be
it does
way
right now.
more than that.
Yeah.
But you kind of see the Train Depot, obviously utilities are pretty high, same thing with Senior Center. So we pay all those expenses. The same thing in Old City Hall, you can kind of see from a utility perspective what it's costing us. My recommendation to you, and I talked to somebody today, I'm not sure which one, would be, from a budget perspective, don't get in the weeds on it. I would leave your budget where it is, because you can always, when we get to the negotiation of leases, y'all can charge, you can do whatever you want, and it'll just be increased revenue to your bottom line, if you decide to change a rate. But from a budget perspective, I wouldn't spend a lot of time on it while we're dealing with these pages of stuff. And again, if you decide to make a change somewhere, that'll come out through its work.
So when do we decide, or when do we
But-
start?
We'll have to start looking at leases, because like a couple of them are up, so we have to kind of renew them. Right now, they're month to month. And so, yeah, but we'll get some direction from y'all, and it's like, all right, well, from an amount, what do you want us to, what should we be charging compared to, right now, I mean, boys, senior center, we don't charge anything. It's kind of our gift to the county, and for all those people, which is wonderful,
Right.
Is that the
But
only
that expense is on
senior
us.
center?
That's your property taxes
That's
at
all
work, and it's a great benefit.
But that's
For a lot of
also
people.
Your only
a benefit
center.
to the community to
Absolutely.
have that.
Yeah.
Same thing with Boys and Girls Club. I think Mike, I don't know if it was the last meeting you talked about this, but the idea of,
Yeah,
all right, well,
My thing with Boys and Girls Club, let's turn it over to them.
they basically own all their assets across the coast except ours.
Building this and that, but
you know.
look, they own Boys and Girls Clubs up and down the coast. That's a nationwide
Right.
group. They got a lot more money than we'll ever see, and let them pick up some of these expenses.
And When
you know.
something goes wrong in there, they call our public works department. They gotta go in and
They're
do
pretty
maintenance. I
much,
just got a work order, submitted from the train depot today for 3 or 4 items. So the
So they-
rental property stuff is taxing on our staff as well,
Do they
and
pay
it could be
any? What's their rental amount?
Who?
Boys and Girls Club,
They
what they
don't.
paying?
nothing.
They don't pay.
Zero.
That's
Goose
what I
egg.
thought, okay.
But that's what I'm saying,
But-
just turn it over and let them run it like they do the rest of them, but let
Yeah,
them
let
be
them pay the
responsible.
property.
But there's $63,000 in expenses that we pay for that building.
With nothing else going wrong, but we just spent 20 on fire alarms 2 months ago.
25 on fire
Right.
alarm. and everything
25,
else, too.
yeah. So, I mean,
I mean,
You
so
know.
we had a hard,
And one of the things to be
Yeah.
thinking about, because, we're probably a little behind the 8 ball with it, is the depot. We're getting calls all the time about wanting to lease the depot for this, that, whatever. So we need to look at seeing what we want to do with that. It's been anything from, retail, cafe style things,
that's been-
golf cart rentals, different things,
so
so.
We
again,
still have,
if you wanted to do, if something at the depot like first floor,
we still have that
you would
space
have to,
on the
you'd
first
have to
floor too.
advertise for
We
an
still have
RFP.
that space on the first floor that isn't being used in
You
the
got the
depot,
kitchen
that
area,
kitchen
what they call
area.
it. It still needs to be repaired. It's not perfect.
Okay.
It's not ready for business, but it can be.
Yeah, and that could, so we really need to start looking at what we want to do with that building.
How many sections is it broken out into right now?
It could be 3,
3?
Yeah.
Upstairs pretty much 1. There's an office off to the side, on the east side then you got the halls and the, elevator, then you go in over to the west side of the building, and that's where they have something over there. And downstairs you have all that, and then you have a hall going back into, I guess it was called the kitchen area back there, and also, it could be 3 sections. It all can be combined into one, and, upstairs, downstairs. So,
Again, if a lot of private sectors have contacted and said, hey, we'd like to do X. And the response is, the city council would have to direct us to do an advertisement for proposals for a profit business.
The
I
way,
think
we
we
can't
would
just-
need
we
to
can't just
have
do
an idea of what we would want to be.
And you
yeah,
can
we
in
can
there.
dictate what
You
we
can,
want
you
in
can
there.
write that into your,
If we want a cafe,
advertisement.
retail, or retail only, or,
I hate to put a competing business in there though, because you already have a lot of that on Blaze.
I
it's
would
just
love
something
to-
additive.
I would love to see like a coffee shop and a souvenir shop. There's no place in the Bay to get
well,
a
the
Bay
train
St.
coming
Louis
as well, that-
cap or,
yeah, that's something you could do.
huh?
That's with the train coming, again,
With the
people coming,
train
you could do
coming
something.
and
Again, that could be written
continue
into an
to
RFP.
utilize the depot as the visitor center
Right.
and you know, still promote the tour buses
Mhm.
to come through and stop there. I think, you know,
Yeah, I mean, like,
keep it
going back to
simple,
what-
keep it simple.
Like Falba said, you might not wanna have a pizza place because you got a pizza place.
Right,
down the
that's what's like
street.
a
You- no.
Might not wanna sell
competitive
hamburgers because you got, a
Right.
place that sells hamburgers.
But Little Bay St.
But
Louis shot
You
glasses.
sold ice cream and
Bay
coffee,
Rat
there's no competition for that
stickers
right
and-
there.
But we do have that third place.
But just, I just wanted to
available
explain, from a
to do
budget
both.
perspective, what we're here for the workshop, I would just recommend, leave those revenue items alone. If when we get to the lease stuff, you wanna charge a different price, you wanna advertise and see what proposals, you'll just have more revenue, it won't be under, it won't be
Yeah, when
lower.
we get
It'll
that,
just be
hopefully we'll
higher.
have the value of them as well.
Yes.
Mhm.
You talking about, fair market value for rent type of thing?
So
Okay.
I say you do
Some-
that.
Will we give the current occupants first
bite.
dibs
Yeah,
at
fir-
it
I
to
think
see if
first
they
bite.
can be, whatever we decide, that they can offer that to us before just looking for outside vendors and,
That would be, again, directed by you guys to tell us.
I think we
By the
come
administration.
up with the
But you-
rates that,
I think
you
you-
know, whatever we think.
Again, you don't have to do that
reasonable,
tonight, but
set it.
might
right,
you wanna,
Yeah.
y'all might, kinda like, hey, what would like, like
Yeah.
to see there?
Maybe
know,
at the
You
next
got a museum, you
council
got
meeting,
other
we could
stuff.
ask.
Tourism is basically exiting, so there's some space.
Yeah,
So what
that's
do you do with it?
So is
You know,
there
one
any
thing, if you
payment
lease
to
them
them?
too,
No,
they pay taxes on that.
they pay the tax.
They do.
It becomes taxable property then.
Yeah.
It becomes a taxable,
Yeah.
at that point, once you have a lease agreement, you're no longer getting city benefit of tax-free, property tax, Jimmy Ladner's.
any of those.
So that would just have to be factored into your equation for expenses.
Do they pay any expensive now, like insurance or anything in the depot?
No, $150.
Just that
$150 a
base?
month from, one of the tenants.
I was
that-
on the impression they
Tourism
paid
doesn't pay.
insurance or something over the whole building.
I think
No.
the,
No, that's,
which one are you?
Train Depot's $32,000 worth of insurance
And
that
the
we
city pays
we
that.
pay.
Again, I think if you're
Yep.
starting to look at
That's you?
paying insurance now, I think you have to,
Which one?
Have
Oh,
to
you,
be-
this one.
probably the whole building for one purpose,
Right.
to make it feasible for them to come in. And, I mean, that's a $32,000 cost if we're looking to recoup all that.
So I guess at the next council meeting, we can maybe start the process of seeing what we want to value, what we want to charge. That way we can start rolling out some of these lease renewals, see if they say
Yeah, I
yes,
mean-
yay or nay
Yeah.
to it, and then we'll know the long-term effect after that, what we need to do.
Yeah, and if someone wants the whole thing, willing to take the whole thing, I think it's a lot easier with somebody taking the whole thing and dealing with 2 or 3 people in there, we tried that at City Hall, the old City Hall.
Right.
We had a restaurant downstairs and then thought we was opening up upstairs to something real quiet and all, and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And even with the
Didn't work out.
depot, the elevator's kinda not a sectioned off thing, I mean,
No.
unless you made it sectioned off.
Well, yeah, it could, I think we got a door going into to the left, to the depot itself downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could be sectioned off the elevator if upstairs and stayed open later,
So, going back to CASA, I was looking at some of my notes from talking with Cynthia, and they have taken over Harrison County, CASA, and Stone County.
That's right.
And I remember her specifically saying, we've never budgeted any money for CASA, and $1,000 would mean the world to her in knowing that the city is behind them. They have
benefit to
made
the
a conscious
community.
decision to make their headquarters, keep their headquarters here in Hancock County. Because I said, well, what about, sponsoring, letting you use the depot or whatever. She said, money is what, bottom
It
line.
goes straight to the bottom line.
Yeah.
You don't have.
She's got three executives and 3 staff, 1 here, 1 Harrison, 1 of each in Stone.
And I think when you looked at the Hancock County breakdown between Diamond Head, Waveland, Bay St. Louis, unincorporated areas. We had like 65 kids last year that,
You know, I mean, we used
think-
to have
how many?
probably quadruple that.
Quadruple
134.
that,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Oh, we was way above that.
It was like 300 something at one time.
Exactly.
So
They, look, they,
And that money will go to help train the advocates.
and the cost of
And-
it, I mean,
yeah.
it's a cost.
Mhm.
You know, you have the advocates, you know, that's there that, and all, and they try to do something with the kids when, you know, their birthdays, different things, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
And if you look, we had more kids in Harrison County, Stone County, all them probably combined.
Yeah, and that's like on that point. I know the monetary is important. I just personally, I'd like to see it through a sponsorship. I mean, CASA, they have great fundraisers. They have a lot of literature they put out there. So if our sponsorship can get on there, I think we could justify taking taxpayer dollars to use that. And I mean, to me, they give a great service. I mean, honestly, they're a service more than a
Yeah,
nonprofit. I mean,
you know,
they literally help the youth court. I mean, they get appointed to cases, so they're there through the whole process. So I think they're in a different category, but just tagging it with the sponsorship or marketing, I think would be
yeah,
a good. It would be a good thing. Like, we're supporting them, but also there's a trade-off with it.
we'll talk to Cynthia and see and all, you know, what the thought, what would help them the most.
But when you talk about sponsor, you're talking about a particular event? They have the
when I-
gala, or are you
when I
talking
talked
just in
to her, they-
general being a
Well,
sponsor?
The gala is at the
Giving them
casino.
$1,000, but,
Gala,
you know, putting.
Yeah,
getting some-
so they had, I remember when I talked to her, they had three different sponsorship levels.
Mhm.
I could probably pull it up, but they had 3 sponsorship levels. She'll probably be able to fill us in on it. I don't wanna speak and be wrong, but, you know, some of the municipalities actually have a sponsorship level and the amount that they give.
Mhm.
I mean, they're giving it because they support it, like a package deal.
Yeah.
But
I'll find out and bring that and get that.
personally, I'd like to
to
do
you.
a package
Okay,
deal.
that way you
y'all
have
wanna
it.
bring her up here next workshop, Monday night?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can bring
I
it up.
think our workshop's Monday night.
Yeah.
isn't it?
This Monday?
It was an if needed, but it sounds like we're gonna need it.
We're gonna need it.
We'll need it.
Hey, if we got this done in 3 meetings,
So
it'd be
for
great.
Monday- So for Monday, we're bringing the CASA info in. We're bringing the rentals, more rental info, or are we just gonna decide that at the regular council meeting?
We could,
First of all, you can't vote on anything at a workshop.
I know, but I
But-
mean, as far
Yeah,
as.
we can
You
look
can have
at it, we can
discussion
start
about
looking
what you
at
would
it,
like. I
and
mean,
it doesn't have to be done tomorrow, but we're getting calls of people wanting the depot. Now, when it comes down to it, are they actually gonna, you know, put a
Agree.
price in
What?
to get it? You know, I don't know. We did that with Old City Hall
Right.
it didn't work.
4 times, I think.
Yep.
And finally, the chamber stepped up and took it, you know, but we advertised it 4 times, cause they had people calling, want, and then that's what we put a bid in for.
so they call it a mission partner
The
for
depot
CASA.
areas, I find that it's doing better than it was a few years ago.
What's that?
And I said, I find the
Depot?
depot area more stable than it was
Of course.
several years ago, so it
Absolutely.
may be, you know, prime time to offer that.
Yeah.
Especially with the train coming.
You know, one of the ones that called
Especially
about it
with
was,
train coming.
wanted to open up, a restaurant upstairs, downstairs now, you know, the whole thing.
Then we're gonna bring her, not jumping back, but for the CASA thing, in their flyer, they have a mission partner, which is your 3 sponsorship levels: Founder Circle, Children's Champion, Children's Protectors is for children's advocates. Then they have Anchors for personal, but they also have a spot for local government support. You have Harrison County, Hancock County, Stone County, Gulfport, Diamond Head, D'Iberville, Biloxi, Pasco Shan, all listed on there.
Everybody but Bay St. Louis.
No, Bay St. Louis. And Diamond Head, I mean, we can have her come talk. I don't want to steal her spotlight, but they do a lot for Bay St. Louis, more so than Diamond Head, and Diamond Head's contribute.
I would think that's correct.
Yep.
Is that the KIP and everything?
All right.
Anything else?
Are we having fun yet?
Hey,
Oh, no, you.
email, send messages, think of something, don't hold back. Monday night, we wanna wrap it up, so we can get it
So
out.
Ideally Monday we'd have a meeting,
Can you send
tweak,
us,
tweak whatever y'all wanna tweak.
What, John?
can you tweak some of the stuff and send it to us before Monday night at the meeting, please? I mean, cause we get
Changes,
here,
yes, we
we
hope
get
to have
here and have to
everything
try to go
tomorrow.
through all
Yeah.
this stuff
Yes,
on the
Yeah.
fly, okay? Or even Friday.
And
later
then-
the
we
week.
probably should have had this done ahead of time and work on the middle part, them other 100 pages,
Mhm.
and we should have did it that way instead of
It's just
trying to
hard.
do the whole thing tonight.
I know it's hard on y'all do a lot of hours going through, but it's hard enough to go up here in an hour or two and try
Oh,
to
no
find
doubt.
the pages
Look.
and
And
what went where and how did it move and all that.
jumping all around,
oh, Yeah.
Lord
Yeah.
have mercy.
Yeah, so, thank you.
So.
Thank you
ac-
both.
According to our,
Very
the
much.
budget calendar,
Thank
you know,
y'all.
we'd have a third budget workshop, try to finalize some stuff. If needed, I mean, we'll keep going, okay, we've just gotta hit the September 15th deadline to approve a budget. That's a law, okay? And then, so everything's kinda built off of that date to work our way back. So if everything goes right on Monday and y'all are good, on Tuesday, I'll have an agenda item, and if I need to remove it, depending on how Monday goes, hope we can remove it. But it'll be, hey, authorization to advertise for a public hearing, which is a requirement for the budget, and then we have a public hearing on the budget. And then in September, first meeting in September, we approve the budget, and then we do setting mills and all that kind of stuff.
How's our
So,
agenda?
there's a
is our
step
agenda
for it.
long For Tuesday night, Caitlin, right now?
And again, if we need to, if we gotta tweak something Monday, and it's like, hey, we gotta finalize it, finish it up, and have more, a little bit more discussion on Tuesday, we can make that part of your, council meeting too, just to try to finalize it.
Good.
But if need be, we can always push another week, I mean, have us call another meeting.
I'm having a feel, we'll see
Okay.
Monday, but I have a feeling
But-
that might be,
And I think generally we'll get pretty close,
yeah.
I mean, just based on the feedback that's coming.
I think the other will fall in.
All right. Any other discussion here? All right, we'll call for a motion to adjourn the July 31st, 2025
Motion.
workshop. Got a motion by Councilwoman Holmes. Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Second by Councilman Smith. Any other discussion? Vote the motion.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion